Chapter 924. Fiend God Body 12 Revolution. Wang Wei watched the battle calmly until the two reached a compromise, and Huafeng Huang left in anger. His expression did not change much, making it impossible to know whether this was the outcome he desired or not. The ancient clan's ambitions are too grand for their capabilities. I hope they understand the message I'm sending them. Otherwise, no matter how harsh the backlash for their annihilation is, I won't hesitate to eliminate them, muttered Wang Wei. These people's ambitions are an instability to his era. If they messed around too much, the heavenly era might be short-lived, and that's something he cannot accept or allow. Ha! Uttered Wang Wei as he looked at the northern continent. Aoshin's fate has changed? The power of fate flashed in his eyes, revealing heaven and earth's deepest truths or secrets. He wants to use the Star Sage to transition into an eternal emperor? Well, he's a 6-star Primarch, so there should be no problem. However, the 3-star Sage does not have such ability. But Aoshin's bloodline is chaos, so he should be able to raise the Sage to 4-star. Wang Wei did not care much about Aoshin's breakthrough as it will only help alleviate the issue of balance mechanism, just like Su Shi. What about Huafeng Huang? Does she have the same idea? He gazed in the direction of the ancient clan. His eyes ignored the innumerable distance between his position and the clan's small world. It's undecided? It seems she wants to wait for when I leave and become Heavenly Emperor. Wang Wei pondered the implications of her controlling the court. The next generation belongs to my father. However, the best plan would be to wait a few generations after him before participating in another battle. After all, it won't be good for the sect to have 3 consecutive eternal emperors. 2 generations are enough to establish a deep foundation for the Heavenly Emperor era. Furthermore, Li Jun and Yan Liling will be watchguards and ensure no problem occurs for a few generations. After figuring things out, Wang Wei no longer cared whether Huafeng Huang became an eternal in this generation or waited later to become a heavenly emperor. The real issue is the balance mechanism against the myriad emperor world. One generation might have as many as 5 eternal emperors. There needs to be balance. Otherwise, the other world communities cannot compete. His gaze penetrated the river of fate as he divined the truth. I see. A system like the Devil God world. This should work. Wang Wei frowned after discovering the truth. The situation in the lower dimension will become complicated. I must hurry up. Although the development speed of the era was perfectly alright, he did not want any unknown or uncontrollable variable to suddenly appear. So, he decided to speed up certain things. Let's increase my strength first. Without wasting time, he walked into his cultivation room and entered seclusion. Wang Wei took out the things he exchanged with the 5 Eternals and began to condense more power veins. His body began to glow golden, releasing a holy aura full of compassion, love, and understanding. Sounds of chanting could be heard emanating from his body, lasting for many years. Afterward, countless visions manifested in the room. There were noble dragons with the power of chaos, followed by the 5 sacred beasts. With each vision, Wang Wei's flesh became increasingly more powerful. After an unknown amount of time, everything returned to normal. Wang Wei stood in the room with only pants on. He clenched his hand. 59 Infant Fiend God Force, the peak of 2nd class. He sighed, thinking how difficult cultivating in the true Power Dao realm was. The resources he used to condense the power veins were top of the line, but the increase was so small. Of course, Wang Wei knew between 40 and 70 Infant Fiend God Force was a special time for body refiners, and cultivating in these stages is harder than usual. It seems every body refiner will have some sort of bottleneck in this stage. Some people will spend eons without any improvement. Most pure body refiners will waste their 9 yuan epic lifespan between these stages. Luckily, he can pass this stage with relative difficulty with his talent and top-level rare resources. After checking his body, Wang Wei continued his retreat. He took out 2 things from his space ring. D. Tian's diluted Fiend God bloodline and Su Shi's primordial chaos power. Without hesitation, he fused them in an attempt to make up for the flaws in the bloodline. He immediately noticed the transformation in the blood after fusing with the primordial chaos power. Wang Wei observed every detail of the change, analyzing the secrets of this Fiend God bloodline. It's not enough, he muttered after observing for countless years. He observed his Qi flower ability to see how much chaos Qi he had in reserve after so many years. Most of the innate Qi in the flower had turned into chaos Qi, to Wang Wei's satisfaction. Now I can use Aoshin's pure chaos power and Su Shi's primordial power as a template to condense primordial chaos Qi. Wang Wei started to condense his chaos Qi into primordial chaos Qi. His first attempts were futile, but he eventually succeeded after repeated efforts and relentless study. He channeled the newly created primordial chaos chi to the fiend god bloodline to complete its sublimation. "Success," said Wang Wei with a smile. He did not want to waste time, so he continued without pausing. He used the knowledge he gathered to renovate the fiend god body 12 revolution. Previously, he only had a template or embryo of what the 10th revolution would be like. Now, he upgraded the first 9 revolutions and finished the 10th revolution. He even had ideas for the 11th revolution. By now, this technique looked nothing like Dao Monarch Qianhua's technique. Wang Wei closed his eyes and accessed his bloodline or genetic information. Humans are not creatures that inherently rely on bloodlines. Some cultivators will fuse their laws or Dao comprehension into their bloodline, allowing their descendants to inherit their cultivation talent and countless divine abilities. However, most powerful humans do not do so because of the limitations of bloodlines. Another reason is that humans have a unique bloodline based on intelligence and good fortune. Take a clan like the Wang or Di clan. In every generation, talented individuals will be born in their clans. Their geniuses will be born with a high affinity with spiritual qi, high comprehension, and good luck and destiny. High affinity with spiritual qi means their descendants will have a great talent for cultivation. High comprehension means their souls are easier to cultivate, and they have no problem understanding the laws. Finally, luck and destiny have too many benefits, one of which is a higher probability of being chosen by heaven and earth to inherit a heavenly physique, which is like a bloodline without limitations. As Wang Wei accessed his bloodline, he briefly saw the lives of all his ancestors, going as far back as Qiyuan. He saw when the latter became the source of the Wang clan's bloodline. He also took this opportunity to check whether no one left some imprint in the bloodline. Although he trusted Qiyuan and the others, he could not be too sure. Luckily, there was nothing. Besides a few restrictions to prevent other people from body-possessing members of the Wang clan and using the bloodline to ruin the clan's luck and destiny, everything was normal. After sighing in relief, Wang Wei proceeded to the next step, condensing the bloodline seed. However, Qianhua's bloodline seed was a prototype of the fiend god bloodline. To be specific, it was a unique bloodline with the ability to evolve and grow. What Wang Wei condensed was his human bloodline into a seed while retaining the evolutionary traits of the bloodline. Wang Wei waved his hand to summon a pill with creatures carved on its body. This pill was created by refining Wuxia's body and soul. She possessed the myriad beast physique, which is the perfect catalyst to absorb multiple innate bloodlines to evolve his human bloodline. After swallowing it, he immediately felt his bloodline had a subtle change. Wang Wei had moved the golden pool of blood he exchanged with heavenly Dao to help it save people during the cleanup. The pool contained countless innate demon god bloodlines and was the perfect resource for cultivating this technique. With the help of the unique laws from Wuxia's body, Wang Wei's bloodline seed absorbed the energy and power of the blood. After an unknown amount of time, he succeeded in the first revolution. Wang Wei could feel his human bloodline sublimated to a higher level. However, this was not enough, so he continued until the third revolution. According to my revision, every 3 revolutions is a level. The first 3 is the extraordinary bloodline, the middle 3 is the innate bloodline, while the final 3 revolutions are the chaos bloodline. Wang Wei sensed his body. He could feel a unique power from his blood that was nourishing his skin, muscles, tendons, ligaments, bones, organs, meridians, blood, and even soul. Alas, it was too weak for the current him. Regardless, he broke into 60 infant fiend god force, allowing him to have the battle strength of a first-class emperor with only his fleshly body. To succeed in the 4th revolution and elevate my bloodline to the level of innate demon gods, I need to choose a Dao as the source. Should I choose Fate Dao or something else? He pondered for a moment before shaking his head. Let's continue with the original plan and use my Bodhis characteristic, nothingness. According to his estimate, once he succeeds, he will officially enter the second stage of nothingness, void. Wang Wei did not waste time and gathered the small power of nothingness in his body. The power was only enough for him to become intangible, but the quality of this power was probably the highest in the entire chaos universe. He fused it with his bloodline seed as the base before proceeding with the 4th revolution. The process was not as easy as Wang Wei thought. He felt a great resistance to what he was doing. With a quick calculation, he understood why. It would be one thing if he were condensing an innate, chaos, or even fiend god bloodline. However, he was elevating his human bloodline to that level. According to the rules of heaven and earth, humans are born weak, so his act is somewhat of an act of rebelling against heaven and earth. Luckily, he is an immeasurable emperor and cares little for the rules. If Wang Wei was immortal, Such a cultivation technique would have garnered a terrible heavenly tribulation and even divine punishment thunder. However, it was only a slightly annoyed resistance for his current self. Chapter 925. Fiend God Body 12 Revolutions. 2. Chaos life forms are higher than any innate demon gods even though they also cultivated innate laws. When the world was in a state of chaos, the laws were not even completed, so there is no such thing as chaos laws. Wang Wei had no problem with the 4th to 6th revolution since his golden pool was composed of too many innate bloodlines. However, from the 7th revolution he needed to elevate his bloodline to the level of chaos bloodline. Humans or acquired lives bloodline is unique. They can be as powerful as any innate, chaos, or even fiend god bloodline. However, there is a caveat: they must use the Grand Tao source to make their bloodline noble. A great emperor's bloodline is as noble as any innate bloodline, the same for Eternals and Chaos bloodlines, and a paragon's bloodline might be even better than any fiend god. However, Wang Wei's actions were as if humans were born innately by heaven and earth and their bloodline was inherently noble. He did not use the Grand Tao source to make his bloodline powerful and forcefully turned himself into an innate demon god. After the 7th revolution, Wang Wei's bloodline reached the level of any order chaos lifeforms. However, he also felt something outside the court waiting for him but did not care. After the 9th revolution, Wang Wei felt his human bloodline reached the level of any disorder chaos lifeform. Although these creatures have no mind of their own, their madness makes them extremely powerful and destructive. Furthermore, their bodies are more powerful after being tempered using disorder chaos chi instead of order chaos chi. After the 9th revolution, Wang Wei did not condense any innate laws but continued with the 10th revolution. He immediately felt an intense resistance but did not care. The energy in the golden pool was plentiful, and he had a real fiend god bloodline as a model to copy from. With that single sample he can use his divination to deduce countless other bloodlines and learn from them. Crack. He heard something breaking before his body emitted a sense of joy. He then felt his body rapidly transform, from every cell to every atom. The power of nothingness rushed to every corner of his flesh, nourishing and strengthening everything. 10th revolution and the void stage, muttered Wang Wei with a smile as he felt the changes in his body. Then his gaze broke the court and looked at the sky. Purple gold clouds floated above the court, flashing with lightning of the same color. Immemorial tribulation, he muttered. Heavenly tribulations do not stop for cultivators in the upper dimension because they are immortal. From breaking through tier 11 and above, there is a bottleneck that even the most talented individuals will experience. But even after passing the bottleneck, these cultivators must also survive immemorial tribulations to become Empyreans, Tao monarchs and immortal sovereigns, unless you're in the lower dimension. The immortal sovereigns that do not ascend do not have to pass immemorial tribulations, hence one of the many reasons they are so weak and restricted in the lower dimension. It's also why so many of them do not ascend, because of the fear of surviving the immemorial tribulation. Wang Wei squinted his eyes. Immemorial lightning and thunder not only exist as a tribulation for cultivators but also as a form of punishment similar to divine punishment thunder of the lower dimension. Unlike the lower dimension, true heavenly Tao is extremely lax in his control over the upper dimension, letting these mighty cultivators do as they please. However, once they get out of line, go too far, or do something truly shocking, immemorial punishment lightning will descend on them. The most powerful of these punishments is enough to eradicate even the best boundless paragons. Wang Wei calmly watched the immemorial tribulation above him before focusing on the surroundings. He could feel he was now in a separate dimension created by true heavenly Tao to prevent the tribulation from destroying most of the lower dimension. How considerate, he muttered before going into action. He used the divine punishment thunder his wife sealed inside his body to temper his newly condensed bloodline. He wanted it to be as pure as possible. Then he allowed the immemorial tribulation to descend on him. Wang Wei had to admit, if not for his own strength, his fleshly body would never survive this tribulation on its own. So he activated all his Grand Tao boosts and fought with this tribulation, ensuring it would be used to temper his bloodline instead of destroying it and ruining all his efforts. To his surprise, the strength of this tribulation reached as much as 65% of the Grand Tao source. In the process of surviving this tribulation, Wang Wei stabilized his tenfold battle realm, and his strength reached 69% Grand Tao source. Finally succeeded, muttered Wang Wei, who did not expect his act of elevating his human bloodline to the level of fiend gods to be a rebellious act against heaven and earth, making the tribulation so difficult. Wang Wei suddenly felt something and scanned the entire world with his divine sense. Many people were observing the court with eyes full of fear. The power of that tribulation terrified too many people. The main issue is that many of these people believed he did not survive this tribulation and became restless. So he released a terrifying aura that surrounded the entire world, warning these monkeys that the kind was still present. Then the world returned to its calm, with people even more awe and respectful of the heavenly emperor. Of course, they most want to know what he did to have such a terrifying tribulation. Wang Wei focused on himself as he still had more things to do. He checked his strength. 74 infant fiend god force. He now had the strength to fight eternal emperors with his flesh. Although the increase looked small, Wang Wei knew the true potential of this bloodline. A mysterious power was constantly being released and tempering his body at all times. Now, like all fiend gods, he only needed to wait for his bloodline to develop, and his body would passively become stronger. Sadly, he also has the downside of all fiend gods. It might take billions if not a few yuan epochs, before his bloodline reaches the peak. By then he will reach 100 infant fiend god force without doing any work. All I have to do is continue cultivating or absorbing more energy to accelerate the rate my bloodline develops, and I can easily enter the fifth true power Dao realm. Wang Wei nodded in satisfaction before continuing his work. True heavenly Dao does not allow any bloodline on the level of fiend god to exist in the lower dimension, so he needs to do some extra work to ensure the Wang clan won't be annihilated or forcefully exiled to the upper dimension. He used his order-disorder Dao to place some restrictions on the bloodline. He classified future bloodline descendants into 3 categories. The first category is the unawakening. These people are the previous bloodline that is based on good fortune, luck, cultivation talent, and comprehension. These people do not have any bloodline abilities or blessings, but it does not mean they did not benefit from the human fiend god bloodline. The benefit Wang Wei gave them was an unparalleled talent for body refining. After Qiyuan separated the bloodline, the other Wang clan inherited the Heaven Opening Emperor's talent for body refining while the Dao Opening Sex branch inherited Qiyuan's talent for cultivation and comprehension. As such, in each generation some people of the Wang clan have a talent for body refining while others do not. Now Wang Wei provided the talent for all descendants of his branch. The second class of descendants will be the semi-awakening. This class of individuals will only awaken a bloodline between 1 to 3 revolutions. Afterward, they have to cultivate the Fiend God Body 12 revolution, and increase their bloodline concentration. The advantage of this class is they can choose whatever Dao or concept they wish as the source of their bloodline, adding more variety to the Wang clan source bloodline. They do not have to inherit Wang Wei's nothingness powers. This class of people can also awaken innate laws and become primarchs. As for the level of primarchs they will become, it will depend on their abilities and talents. The last class is the full awakening. This class will inherit everything from his bloodline and will essentially be fiend gods. Upon awakening their bloodline, they will immediately become immortal and awakening primordial law of void, not primordial law of nothingness, since even Wang Wei cannot condense such a thing as of yet. This class of individuals will only have to rely on their bloodline to reach the strength of eternal emperors. However, they cannot participate in the heaven will battle. If they want to prove the Dao, these people must ascend and do it in the upper dimension. The first class will be the clan's main source of great emperors. The second class will create more primarchs or immortal tier powerhouses. This group of people will guarantee variability in the bloodline. Nothingness or void can contain everything, similar to chaos. So, no matter what Daos the second class people choose, it will benefit the entire bloodline source. Meanwhile, the last class will be the secret guardian of the sect while also being the main source of talent for the clan in the upper dimension. Wang Wei will one day ascend, so he must prepare to ensure his power in the upper dimension. The last step is to make sure the clan members have a choice, thought Wang Wei, placing a seal in his bloodline for future descendants. In other words, all members will start in the first class and choose whether to awaken their bloodline in which category. Of course, there is a chance of failure, especially for the third class of full awakening, since not everyone can inherit his bloodline. Chapter 926, Fiend God Body 12 Revolutions, Finale. Next is the other 3 clans and the sect, muttered Wang Wei before continuing his work. His bloodline contained the bloodline of the Li, Yan and Yu clan and many other families to which the Wang clan had married. Wang Wei even discovered the bloodline of the Di clan and even members of the Divine Dao League. So Wang Wei took some time to trace the bloodline source of the Li, Yan and Yu clan. I only need to slightly modify the Li and Yan clan's bloodline, granting them some benefits until Li Jun and Yen Liling can cultivate to the 10th revolution, acquire a human fiend god bloodline and fully modify the source. I only hope they can do it before I ascend so I can protect them through the tribulation. The Wang clan members won't have a problem cultivating the 10th revolution since their bloodline is already at that level, and they are only adding to it. However, it's different for the Li and Yen clan. Wang Wei soon finished modifying the Li clan's bloodline source and proceeded to the Yen clan. He discovered their bloodline was matriarchal in nature, favoring woman over man in its blessing. Now it made sense why their 2 emperors were women, commented Wang Wei before continuing. Kid, what are you doing? Suddenly said a voice. Ancestor? You're not dead? How rude, said the Sword Empress. So, you're the only one who survived the ultimate taboo. However, why do I feel you're so weak? Said Wang Wei as he looked at the woman who appeared before him, releasing a natural terrifying sword will. I was injured, so now, I'm only a little emperor, replied the Sword Empress. But even if I'm in this state, how dare you say I'm weak? She looked at him up and down. 10-fold battle realm? She did not hide the surprise in her face, followed by envy and regret. What's with this look? When I was young, I was super competitive, so I wanted to achieve the 10-fold battle realm and even the legendary taboo battle realm. So, I underwent foundation re-establishment. Alas, I only achieved 9-fold, and it's the same for your wife. One of my regrets is that I failed. You achieve 9-fold without tempering your body? Tempering the body is overrated, replied Sword Empress before remembering her situation. Many source techniques can boost the flesh to be on par with the best body refiners. Although it's only a temporary boost, it's more than enough for battle. Wang Wei nodded his head. He had long anticipated the Eternal Ascension world was a cultivation civilization that had developed to a terrifying level. As such, almost everything was possible after countless years of research and development of techniques, spells, and arts. How is she? Asked Wang Wei, and Sword Empress smiled. She's fine. Plus, she does not completely reject your marriage. You only need to woo her again. I'm satisfied as long as she gives me a chance. Wang Wei was prepared to use the stalking tactic if she refused to let him court him again, without a care to how disturbing and shameless such a thing was. But now he was glad she would give him a proper chance. Kid, you haven't answered my question. What are you doing in my clan's bloodline source? It's like this, replied Wang Wei before explaining everything. Human fiend god bloodline? What an ingenious idea. You're over-exaggerating, replied Wang Wei with a humble smile. You don't understand. People at my level disdain innate and chaos bloodlines but not fiend gods. However, the primordial and grand Dao path are semi-exclusive, making it difficult for paragons to condense fiend god bloodlines and even harder for fiend gods to prove the Dao and become paragons. Your method is the perfect approach to this situation. Wang Wei frowned after hearing this. I'm sure other people had such an idea before? Sword Empress sighed. Do you think removing Grand Dao's cognitive barrier is simple? Are you saying Grand Dao placed barriers around people's minds to prevent them from having certain ideas and thoughts? Asked Wang Wei with squinted eyes. Yes, fate is so powerful, but it appears to be useless to the more powerful cultivators. But that's only my own error, thought Wang Wei. If you can control a paragon's environment, the culture they are surrounded by, the people they often come into contact with, and even the habits they develop through long years, it's easier to subtly influence their mind and decisions. It's like designing invisible parameters they can grow and develop. That's the horror of fate Dao. Wang Wei had an epiphany, knowing that reaching 35% Grand Dao source won't be much of a problem and would require less merit or resources than before. Thank you, ancestors, for enlightening me. You don't need to thank me, replied Sword Empress, who did not think she did anything to deserve such credit. Dao Lords and Overlords have this title not only because of their intelligence and wisdom but because they have broken off the cognitive barrier of the world. Their mind is no longer in the perfect box Grand Dao created for all sentient beings. I see, nodded Wang Wei, feeling Dao Lords and Overlords had a strange relationship with Grand Dao. The latter loved them for their mind and innovation but also hated them for going out of line. Your technique is truly useful to me. I can condense my human fiend god bloodline and stand there as my body is tempered. I don't have to waste my time and effort and only absorb countless resources to grow. Sword Empress' eyes lit up. The more she thought about this idea, the better she found it was. I can condense a unique sword bloodline so I can walk the ultimate path of swordsmanship. She was truly excited. Meanwhile, Wang Wei smiled wryly as he could sense his ancestors had some aversion to body tempering, most likely because of countless arguments against the ancient desolate emperor. Ancestor, is it possible for you to modify the Yan and Li clan's bloodline? Wang Wei would prefer if she did this instead of Li Jun and Yan Liling, removing the risks involved. That's not a bad idea, she replied. Even without Battle Maniac here, she can still modify the clan's bloodline source to the highest level, and that's because she knows the core secrets of the latter's existence and can access and modify it. That's how close the three of them are. What Daos do you think I should use as the base? The Yan clan did not inherit your swordsmanship talent, so it's best to use a more encompassing Dao like Chaos. The Li clan did inherit the ancestors' battle talent, so it's fine to use it as the base. In that case, let's use Brother Kishin's origin Dao as the base for my Yan clan. The Li clan will inherit the battle Dao. That's fine, nodded Wang Wei. From now on, the Dao opening sect's 3 classes will have 3 unique human fiend god bloodlines: Void, Pseudo-Nothingness, Origin, and Battle. Will it take long? I only need to cultivate the 10th revolution first before I can modify it. By then I should return to the Empyrean realm. Let's see how that little bitch bullies me. She gritted her teeth as she uttered the last phrase. Wang Wei pretended he did not hear anything. Although his strength was on par with his ancestors, that's only on the surface. Who knows what kind of technique she knows to return to her peak. Furthermore, he is also the kind of person who respects his elders. Ancestors, will you have no problem condensing your bloodline in the upper dimension? Don't worry. I've made up with Mithreya and she will protect me. Wang Wei was quiet before asking, is she trustworthy? One issue intelligent people like you, Qishan, and Wu Hong have in common is you overanalyze things, making it more difficult to trust people without knowing much about them. Mithreya did something wrong, apologized, and even promised she would explain things at the appropriate time. That's more than enough for me. I also wish I could trust so easily, sighed Wang Wei. Sword Empress shrugged her shoulders. She was used to dealing with Qiyuan, and his descendants seemed even worse, so there was nothing she could do. I'm leaving, but I will see you again once I'm done. Oh, I will search for Qianhua's inheritance to see if I can find the 11th and 12th revolutions for you as inspiration. Thank you. Don't thank me. You only need to create the 12th revolution as soon as possible so I can become an inextinguishable paragon without much effort. Wang Wei's mouth twitched. His ancestor was so happy in her fantasy she forgot she still had to pass the flesh tribulations in the true power Dao realm, even with a human fiend god bloodline. I will, replied Wang Wei, deciding not to ruin her excitement. As soon as the Sword Empress disappeared, he focused on finishing his task of giving some benefits to the Yu clan. Of course, they will not be as obvious or high as his faction. Additionally, even if Wang Wei wanted to, he could not give them too many advantages. Unlike the other 2 clans whose bloodline has been entangled for countless generations, the Yu clan's blood inside of him was small. Lastly, the Yu clan's bloodline does not have enough destiny to bear the karmic weight of being human fiend gods. If Wang Wei elevated them to that level, it would be a matter of time before they received luck backlash, leading to their destruction. After all, how dare a clan with merely one emperor bore the bloodline of a noble creature as fiend god? If not for the countless paragons that have appeared in the Wang, Li, and Yan clan, Wang Wei would not dare share his bloodline with the whole clan and would only use it for himself. Lastly, Wang Wei sealed most of the benefits for the Yu clan's benefit until his mother proved the Dao. Finally, Wang Wei paid attention to the world to see the influence of the sect on his new bloodline achievements. Journey of the Fate-Destroying Emperor Chapter 927. Bloodline changes. Wang Wei gazed at the entire world, seeing all the changes of the Wang clan and a few others. Because the bloodline had just awakened and was in the first generation, countless individuals inherited its 10th revolution and the full bloodline. The immortals and insurgents from the Wang clan benefited the most from this change. The new bloodline drastically improved their physical bodies and granted them some abilities related to nothingness. People like Origin 1, who was on the verge of eternal strength, immediately reached that level with that boost. Meanwhile, the others only need a little more resources to strengthen their bloodlines and reach that level. The second group of people to benefit the most are the sealed individuals. Before death, many Wang clan members will seal themselves and become the sect's foundation. When needed, they will wake up from their coffins and fight one last time for the sect. However, this was no longer applicable as most had no issue with their lifespans. Those who inherited all his bloodlines were immediately immortal. Meanwhile, the few unlucky ones who inherited 9 revolutions and less still had their lifespan drastically decreased. Regardless, these people do not have to worry about lifespan once the environment is changed back to innate. With a 4-evolution bloodline, they can rely on the environment to become immortal. As long as they continue to absorb innate qi, their lifespan will be infinite. Such an ability is one of the reasons the innate demon gods are considered the darlings of heaven and earth. Wang Wei focused on another group, the sealed heaven chosen. The steward had to deal with all these heaven chosen forcefully awakened due to bloodline activating. These heaven chosens had choices to make and also no longer had to partially seal themselves to wash away their karma and suffer terrible pain. The sect now had plenty of karmic washing water, so they did not need to suffer like this. They can completely seal themselves or enjoy their new immortality. It's all based on their choices. In the hidden Wang clan world, many people were baffled by the chances before the ancestor arrived to deal with the issue. Meanwhile, Wang Wei saw the look of envy and desire in the Li and Yan clan members. Their bloodline did change, but it was a basic change. Their lifespan increased, but it was still nothing compared with immortality. These people seemed to have inherited certain qualities from Wang Wei's cultivation of the ancient desolate body refining scripture. Some people inherited his innate field for his skin, his mastery of elementary control due to his organs, or any of his other body parts abilities. A few people even inherited his exaggerated regeneration with some restrictions. He saw a girl from the Yen clan who inherited his chakras that he opened during the divine body realm. The Li and Yen clan were not the only ones who inherited his fleshly Bodhist divine abilities, but they were the majority. With a thought, he sent a message to all Yen and Li clans' bloodline descendants, telling them their bloodline would also evolve, but they needed to wait a little while. Wang Wei watched their faces and eyes change, going from envy to excitement and pride. He smiled before focusing on somewhere else. His gaze was now in the room with the 9 blood pools. He removed the remaining traces of imprints in the blood with a single thought. Over the years, during his retreat, he had a better understanding and control of the Tao imprint and his existence. Allowing him to achieve such a feat now, anyone in the sect can use Emperor blood to temper themselves or even improve their talent. With a wave of his hand, he created a 10th pool, removed a drop of blood from his heart and sent it. That single drop turned into an ocean of pale gray blood shining brightly with purple, dark lights like the stars during the night. With my blood and the Fiend God Body 12 Revolution technique, members of the sectarian factions can also temper their bodies and activate a unique bloodline. The only downside is their limit is the 9th revolution until they ascend to the upper dimension. Wang Wei had no choice but to leave things as such. The issue of bloodline could easily lead to contradictions. If members of the sectarian sides have human fiend god bloodlines, they could easily create another family that will become the core of the Tao opening sect. However, here lies the issue. The sectarian sides recruit outside disciples, so each time they cultivate a great emperor, a new family might be born into the sect. If this problem is not solved, it's only a matter of time before the sect becomes one controlled by many families or clans. Kai Song, Jin Mengyao, and future sectarian emperors could create a new family, leading to many other problems. The Shadow Ruler Emperor did not create a family, most likely to prevent such a situation, but it's not guaranteed others will be as accommodating as him. The next group of people Wang Wei focused on was the Yu clan. Their changes were the least as he mainly focused on increasing their lifespans and their base talents, ensuring the Yu clan would prosper from now on relying on themselves. The Yu clan did not know the drastic changes of the Wang clan, so they were not jealous and envious, they were only happy they could benefit. Wang Wei proceeded to check on the scattered Wang clan bloodline. As expected, there were many outside clan members who were not known or registered. After so many years, it's understandable that some bloodlines remained outside. Some families had the Wang clan bloodline, just like he had traces of the D clan bloodline, but they were too little to even elicit an awakening, especially since Wang Wei ensured these people did not benefit from this mass awakening. However, Wang Wei did discover something interesting. The Wang clan and the other 2 families had branches scattered in the lower realm and other world communities. According to his divination, Qiyuan sent these people outside to ensure the clan would have a backup in case something happened to the main branch in the Myriad Emperor world. According to the rules he set, the branch members cannot easily reveal their identity or connection to the main branch, and they cannot live in any heavenward worlds to minimize the danger. He cultivated a powerful guardian to protect them and left an order to send replacements to these branches in case something happened to them. The ancestor is wise, but I might have caused some trouble. With these people's awakening and unique bloodline, it's only a matter of time before other interested parties discover the connection to the Wang clan. Wang Wei pointed his finger and accessed the river of fate. He placed a cognitive block around this family's bloodline. So, In the future, even if someone knew these people had a unique bloodline similar to the main branch, no one would ever think there was a correlation. The only way to remove this blockage is if a Tao Lord or Overlord is close to his power. Otherwise, no matter who investigated these branch members, they will never connect them with the clans in the Myriad Emperor world. Wang Wei finally focused on his family. His father inherited a 9-revolution bloodline, and that was by design. Just like the Sword Empress said, walking both the primordial and grand Tao path is troublesome. Unfortunately, the 10-revolution bloodline is classified as the primordial path. So, if his father inherits his human fiend god bloodline, there will be some issues when he tries to prove the Tao. As such, Wang Wei only allowed him to inherit the 9-revolution while also leaving him a special seed to modify his bloodline as he wished, using the power of nothingness to contain everything. After proving the Tao, he can sublimate his bloodline to the 10th revolution. He should be walking a similar path as the ancestor, thought Wang Wei before checking on his mother. Her inheritance focused more on increasing her talent for body refining. In the future, she can also cultivate that fiend god body 12 revolution, and Wang Wei will leave methods to help her in the tribulation. Unfortunately, only she can inherit the bloodline and cannot leave it to the Yu clan after achieving the 10th revolution. His grandfather was laughing like a madman while using a punching routine to adapt to his soaring strength. He inherited the entire bloodline, even dealing with his problem of lifespan. Wang Chang now had 2 paths before him. The first one was to cultivate an 80 to 90 infant fiend god force before ascending and fighting with the 9 Suns Emperor. The second is to reach the high end of the primordial dragon realm or the low end of the infant fiend god realm, becoming a Tao ancestor before fighting his enemy. Wang Wei smiled as he watched him. However, his smile soon turned into a frown. Does he still want to reincarnate? With the first option, his grandfather can still prove the Tao. However, the latter seemed to have made up his mind to start over, to have his own glory as an emperor of the lower dimension, and maybe even sit on the heavenly emperor throne. Maybe some part of him still hopes to reunite with grandmother after reincarnation. Wang Wei checked the path of reincarnation and his frown deepened. He used the karmic connection he and his grandfather had to check a second time but was still unsuccessful. Did she cultivate a higher realm than me in her second life? Or maybe she was reincarnated into another source chaos world. He knew if his paternal grandmother had reincarnated into the upper dimension, he would still have found traces. However, the result was nothing, so he could use these 2 explanations for the current situation. Forget it, and let's not tell the old man this news to not affect his already fragile Tao heart. Wang Wei then checked on Li Jun and Yan Liling. They had no great changes since he was waiting for his ancestors to modify the bloodline source. He waved his hand and 2 people's projections appeared before him, Sword and Desolate One. You should have received the changes that occurred in the clan? They nodded. I will give you 2 choices. Inherit one of the clan's bloodlines or cultivate that fiend god body 12 revolution. I want to inherit the clan's bloodline, responded Sword One without hesitation. She wants nothing more in this world than to become part of the same family as her young lady. I'll cultivate, replied Desolate One succinctly. Very well. Wang Wei accepted their choices and helped them. Desolate One was still re-establishing his foundation, so Wang Wei decided to help and accelerate the progress. Meanwhile, Sword One was far away, so Wang Wei had to teleport some blood to her. Chapter 928, Ancestral Altar. The next thing Wang Wei had to do was to create the bloodline awakening ceremony of the clan. According to his designs, all future Wang, Yan and Li clan members will be born with their bloodline sealed. In other words, they will be born in the first bloodline category, ordinary people with a high talent for body refining. After they begin cultivating, they will experience the awakening of the bloodline in their bodies. Some people might not want to walk the path of bloodline, so they can choose to leave their bloodline unawakened, thus staying in the first category their entire life. Other individuals might choose a partial awakening, thus awakening their bloodline between the first and the third revolution. These individuals will inherit a special bloodline seed that allows them to modify their bloodline to their desire. After they choose whatever law or Tao they wish to cultivate, they can fuse it to the bloodline seed and create a unique human fiend god bloodline. These people can elevate this bloodline to the 10th revolution without having to pass the terrifying immemorial tribulation since they only updated Wang Wei's original void bloodline. The second category of people will likely be the most favored of the 3 since people in that category get the best of both worlds. They can compete for the heaven while also having a powerful bloodline that helps them refine their bodies. These people will become heaven chosens, similar to Huofeng Huang, with innate laws and a powerful fleshly body. Finally, suppose they fail in the final battle. In that case, they can use their innate laws to pass the heaven path tribulation to become pre-march, or they can awaken their bloodline to the 10th revolution and become immortal human fiend gods, walking the primordial law. However, it will not be easy for them to walk the primordial path. After modifying their bloodlines to fit their own personal Tao, Wang Wei's void bloodline will have been changed, requiring them to cultivate on their own to reach the 10th revolution. The third category of individuals will be fully awakened, inheriting the entire 10th revolution bloodline. After the ceremony, these individuals will immediately become immortal human fiend god. With enough resources, their bodies can reach the level of fighting eternal emperors. However, they cannot prove the Tao in the lower dimension and must ascend to do so. Ascension will have a minimum requirement of reaching the primordial dragon realm in the true power Tao realm. The ceremony of the people in the third category is the least safe of them all since not everyone can awaken his full bloodline. As such, the sect must be prepared to save individuals who fail. Bloodline is innate while also requiring certain luck. So, it's possible to determine the concentration level before the ceremony to some degree. So, it's possible to warn certain people beforehand not to choose the third category. I can leave a trial for people who fail to awaken my full bloodline. As long as they show great determination and willpower, I can help them purify their innate bloodline to reach the 10th revolution, muttered Wang Wei, deep in his thought. Furthermore, I need to leave strict rules to prevent the sect from becoming like the Divine Tao League, relying purely on their bloodline and even discriminating against others because of it. The bloodline ceremony should take place after the supernatural realm. In that case, the descendants would have cultivated for a while, have some experience, tempered their Tao heart, and have an inkling of which path they want to walk upon. Such a method will also drastically reduce their over-reliance on their bloodline. Wang Wei raised his hand to create a special dimension for the awakening ceremony. He placed many protections on the dimension to prevent any accidents, including hiding it from the sight of true heavenly Tao using a deception Tao array. He then left another secret backup in case something happened to the dimension and the sect lost the method of awakening their bloodline. He could foresee this method was used to deal with the sect, prevent them from awakening their bloodline and thus drastically weakening them. So he prepared in advance for such a possibility. Wang Wei proceeded to create a second dimension for the bloodline purification trial for members who wish to elevate their bloodline. The trial can also be used by the sectarian factions who cultivate the Fiend God Body 12 revolution and leave descendants. His work was not over. Wang Wei left his power in the bloodline source to prevent future emperors of either clan from leaving their imprints and using it to revive themselves. Finally, he looked in a direction deep in thought. It's not a good idea for the upper dimension Wang clan to experience any drastic change in the current situation, even with Mithraya's protection. After making a decision, he blocked the changes that would happen to the clan members in the upper dimension. After ascending and choosing the appropriate time, he will allow them to experience bloodline sublimation. Wang Wei proceeded to check his spirit flower ability, Soul Network. One of his goals was to use the network to connect to people in the upper dimension. Sadly, he felt a blockage that prevented him from succeeding. After stabilizing his tenfold battle realm, he sensed the blockage was less restrictive. Then, when he changed his bloodline and connected to the upper dimension Wang clan, the blockage became blurred, only requiring a small push to bypass it. Wang Wei sighed. Even if I could access the upper dimension with my network, I doubt I could be secretive and hide it from Supreme Unity. In the end, I still need Mithraya or someone at her level as protection. He shook his head before continuing his retreat. He absorbed all the merit the devil cultivators gifted to him, along with the ones he had already amassed as the heavenly emperor. While he was in retreat, the world was in turbulence as people noticed the anomaly of the Wang clan. They deployed all their spies and used whatever means was possible to detect what was going on. Ancient clan, what's going on? Asked Huafeng Huang, who was in retreat ever since she lost to that bastard Xianxia. The Wang clan members felt a throbbing in their blood, but we have not detected anything, responded one of the elders. The conclusion is the other branch's bloodline has changed, but we have not found out the exact reason. All their spies were long cleaned up by the Tao opening sect, and methods like divinations and calculations were surprisingly useless in this generation. Well, not surprisingly given the heavenly emperor's Tao. Do we want to sacrifice some of our chi luck to find the truth? Is this worth the price? Normally no. But if it's a change in the clan's bloodline, it's not something we can ignore. Everyone became quiet, a sign they agreed with this proposition. In the end, they looked at Huofeng Huang for an answer. "If we do this, the Heavenly Emperor will know we are prying in his affairs," replied Huofeng Huang, making everyone frown. "Then what should we do?" "Two choices," she replied. "The first one is to wait. Such a secret is impossible to hide forever. Sooner or later news will be released. Yes, such a drastic change in bloodline cannot be hidden forever. However, it might take too long to know the truth," someone commented. "The second option is to contact our ancestors in Limbo. They might be interested in this news." During the deception trial, Huofeng Huang analyzed Wang Wei and the upper dimension Heaven Chosen's reaction and knew many of their ancestors died in a terrible event and were now in the realm between life and death, existence and non-existence. "We have tried that before and it was unsuccessful. The world was drastically changing every day, and the ancient clans wanted the wisdom and aid of their ancestors, so they tried on many occasions to contact them. Alas, all their attempts resulted in failure. With the current event, we have a higher chance of succeeding this time," replied Huofeng Huang, who intuitively knew they would succeed this time around. In the end, everybody agreed and proceeded to a secret dimension with an altar at the center. In the ancient era, when humans lived in tribal societies, ancestral altars were very important to them, and each tribe had one. After death, it was an honor for every member of their tribe to be enshrined in their clan's altar, turning into holy spirits that protect their tribe even after death. In the modern era, the ancient clan fused the altars of many tribes as a way to condense the chi luck of all the different tribes. As such, this altar is not only a way to contact their ancestors but also one of the most powerful weapons that is protecting them in this era. Huofeng Huang and the others did not immediately activate the altar but did a ceremony of respect that took more than 5 hours. During the entire process, no one was rushed or showed any signs of impatience in their faces. They did this ceremony every time they tried to activate the ceremony. Usually nothing happened once they finished, but this time things were different. A brilliant golden light flashed in the altar before a phantom-like individual appeared. However, everyone's face subtly changed after seeing the one who appeared. Chapter 929. Ancestors Warning. An elderly man appeared in the middle of the altar with gray hair and a long white beard. He was burly, showing his profound muscles even while wearing a loose black robe. His body did not exude a sage or immortal-like atmosphere to show his wisdom or longevity. No, his body exuded a primal or desolate aura, like an ancient creature who bathed in the bloodline of gods, demons, devils, and Buddhas. Every ancient clan member in this room recognized this person. The Tao Father of the world and their clan, the Heaven-Opening Emperor. The mighty emperor was momentarily confused as he looked around. "So, it worked?" he muttered, knowing his attempt to reach the lower dimension succeeded. A while ago, while still dead and in limbo, he sensed something important had happened in the lower dimension, so he spent a great deal of effort to arrive here. The Heaven-Opening Emperor looked around, gazing at the members of the ancient clan. With his strength, he could sense the guilt and fear these people tried to hide. He immediately knew why but did not care. Like Qiyuan, the Wang clan's branch from his side treats raising genius and capable people with the utmost cruelty. Since the members of his branch could not keep their positions, power, and strength in the lower dimension, it only showed their inadequacy. When it comes to people of his level, the lower dimension can provide them with little power or ability. However, as their place of origin, most paragons will have a special place for their place of origin. So, as long as they are not destroyed, people in the upper dimension will not care about the prosperity of the factions they left behind. The Heaven-Opening Emperor asked, "Why did you guys summon me?" No one answered for a moment before Huofeng Huang took a step forward and bowed. "I have seen the ancestor." "A primarch on the lower dimension? How rare," commented the Heaven-Opening Emperor. "However, it's a shame for someone of your talent to become a primarch." Huofeng Huang smiled wryly before explaining the situation. Starting from the heaven will battle to the heavenly court and finally to the current changes in the Wang clan bloodline. Qiyuan's branch gave birth to such a talent? Muttered the Heaven-Opening Emperor as he caressed his well-trimmed beard. His eyes shone brilliantly as many truths appeared in his mind. Mortal Emperor, 10 Supremacy Foundation, and even Immeasurable Emperor? This kid is scary. No, this generation in general is unique. He looked in the distance, observing something. He raised the Wang clan's human bloodline to the level of Fiend God? Said the Heaven-Opening Emperor, not hiding his shock. Yes, that's the answer I've been searching for. The Heaven-Opening Emperor's voice was loud, shaking the entire ancestral room. Oddly, the sound never escaped the confines of the room. Everyone of sufficient level knew he was unique because of a mutation of his physique. He was the only individual between heaven and earth who cultivated power Grand Tao Source while simultaneously reaching the end of the true power Tao realm and opening the gate of flesh. Many people referred to the heaven-opening emperor as the ultimate body refiner, and they were correct about that because he also had a fiend god bloodline he cultivated to the limit. However, the bloodline has become the core issue of the heaven-opening emperor. After becoming a paragon, he went to great lengths to fuse with this bloodline, almost dying in the immemorial tribulation. According to the rules of heaven and earth, the Grand Tao and primordial path are separated. So, it's a nightmare for fiend gods to prove the Tao and eventually become paragons, but it's also the same for paragons to acquire a fiend god's bloodline and reach the pinnacle. The heaven-opening emperor always felt something was wrong with his body after reaching the pinnacle of the paragon realm. He never knew what it was, and anyone he consulted concluded nothing was wrong. He even consulted his greatest rival, the owner of the Grand Tao Source position of the Power Tao. The two had more than thousands of battles for the position. In the early stages, the heaven-opening emperor lost all of them, but later on they only tied, allowing the others to keep their position. Alas, even after consulting his friends, he never found the answer. A few people suggested to him the problem might be his bloodline, but that answer was too broad, so the heaven-opening emperor changed his bloodline a few times and recultivated them to the pinnacle. Alas, the feeling of incongruity did not fade away. This problem was one of the main reasons he participated in the ultimate taboo, hoping to find an answer. Today he finally knew the answer to his problem. No matter how much I train and cultivate the fiend god's bloodline, it's still foreign. The heaven-opening emperor can say for sure he has 99% control of his bloodline. However, he realized that the missing 0.1% was the real issue. Such a small problem might not be important to others, but after reaching his level, such a small flaw might be detrimental. The real path I must take is to create a human bloodline on par with those pinnacle fiend gods. Only this way can I reach the true pinnacle of body refining, establishing the greatest foundation to become transcendent. The heaven-opening emperor felt his mind cleared and a heavy burden lifted from his shoulder. He knew the way forward after he resurrected himself. He did not need Wang Wei's Fiend God Body 12 Revolution, since only a few people understand bloodline better than him. So, it's not a problem to create Wang Wei's technique. Furthermore, if he wishes, he can travel through the river of time to find Dao Monarch Qianhua's technique and learn from it. The only issue he needs to prepare for is the immemorial tribulation for changing his bloodline, and the heaven-opening emperor could deduce how terrifying it will be. It seems I owe this descendant some karma, muttered the heaven-opening emperor as he observed Wang Wei. He could see countless destinies around him, one of which was the destiny to deal with the 8 parasites and return the eternal ascension world to its golden age. Qiyuan gathered the destiny of the entire chaos universe with the mission to bring about the era of half-step transcendent. His attempt both failed and succeeded. Qiyuan's attempt did create multiple half-step transcendents, but it was not enough. Furthermore, most of the methods that resulted from the ultimate taboo were flawed, which was unacceptable to most people. Someone else must finish what he started. Could this kid be the next one after him? The heaven-opening emperor was in deep thought. The eternal ascension world has gathered the greatest destiny amongst all the chaos worlds. So, the probability of the next chosen one to appear there is the greatest, but it's not completely guaranteed. Some of these old guys must be trying to prevent this from happening, doing everything to make the next destined one appear in their world. Since these old guys are working hard, it's not impossible for Qiyuan to be also secretly plotting. Did he make a move to ensure the next chosen ones appeared in the eternal ascension world and even the Wang clan? Or is this just a coincidence? The heaven-opening emperor did not have a definite conclusion. However, he knew the chaos universe was about to experience another era of prosperity and chaos. As such, he needs to prepare. Should I facilitate the merger of our Wang clan? After thinking about this idea, he secretly groaned. He had his disagreement with Qiyuan and fought a few times. However, they were not enemies and even worked together on many occasions. On multiple occasions, they also discussed a possible merger. However, the conclusion was that it might not be possible, at least not now. Each branch of the Wang clan reached the pinnacle of the eternal ascension world but in different factions. Because of their power, some people do not want them to merge, so they've been secretly plotting to aggravate the contradictions between the two factions. Although Qiyuan and the heaven-opening emperor took measures to alleviate the situation, their methods were not 100% successful in the end. After years, the two clans had many resentments, contradictions, and hatred. Although they can control themselves when they are allies, the difficulty is another level regarding turning them into one huge family. Because of the balance mechanism, it's impossible for the clans in the lower dimension to fuse. However, they can still be allies. So, let's show some sincerity. The heaven-opening emperor waved his hand to remove all the hidden imprints in the Wang clan's bloodline, even protecting them from such a situation from happening. He then used some of his own luck to bless the clan, giving them one last chance to prove themselves. Finally, he looked at the ancient clan. I will give you some wisdom. Whether you listen or not, it's up to you. How dare the unfilial descendants not listen to the ancestor, said these people immediately and in tandem. However, the heaven-opening emperor did not care whether these words were sincere or not. The heavenly emperor's strength has reached the pinnacle of the emperor realm, meaning he is one step away from being able to battle Empyreans. The ancient clan members' faces changed. They knew the heavenly emperor was powerful but never thought he was to that level. After all, it hasn't even been 2,000 years since he proved the Tao. The heavenly emperor era is very important to him. So, no matter what grand plan you are plotting, make sure it does not negatively affect his legacy. Otherwise, he will annihilate you no matter the price he has to pay. Wu Fenghuang and the elders' hearts sank. Their greatest reliance is no matter the situation they can rely on their qi luck to survive. Now it appears it might not be the case. One last thing, continued the heaven-opening emperor. Before ascending, the heavenly emperor will definitely condense a golden body of merit and acquire the title of sage. By then, the backlash of luck from the clan will be nothing to him. You've been warned. After saying these words, he disappeared as if he were never here. Chapter 930, Ancient Clan's Internal Response. What should we do now? Asked one of the elders, and Wu Fenghuang did not know how to answer. Bloodline is very important to the ancient clan, but now they heard the Wang clan had the highest bloodline, fiend gods. Their relationship with Qiyuan's branch is neutral after so many years, so they are not their main concerns. The ancient clan worries the Wang clan in their branch will follow after their counterparts, elevating their bloodline to a higher level. How did they change their bloodline? Is there a way we can replicate it? You're asking me, but who do I ask? They are the most knowledgeable faction in the world regarding bloodline, even outclassing the demon race. However, they've never heard of a human bloodline sublimated to be on par with fiend gods. How about we steal their bloodline? Are you crazy? Didn't you hear the ancestors' words? How dare you say such words with the heavenly emperor's strength? Stupid, I'm not talking about using force. We can do it through marriage. That's not a bad idea. Better yet, how about we facilitate a marriage between the patriarch and the heavenly emperor? Great idea. The heavenly emperor's Tao companion mysteriously disappeared, so we might have a chance. Not necessarily. There have been rumors that he has a hidden relationship with the emperor from the academy? Su sure? Be respectful. You're right. I mean the Time Void Empress. She's indeed the most beautiful woman in the world. However, she lost in terms of noble temperament to our patriarch. Patriarch, how do you feel about this plan? The elders all looked at Wu Fenghuang. No matter how much they planned, the final choice is hers. Wu Fenghuang did not immediately reject the idea and took some time to contemplate the feasibility of this plan. In all categories, the heavenly emperor was the perfect man. He was handsome, powerful, wealthy, noble, and had a powerful physical body. Alas, in the end she shook her head. Based on his personality, I doubt he will take a second wife. She has observed the heavenly emperor closely, and even in his interaction with Su Shi, he could see this was a man with an iron will and would not deviate from his chosen partners. Such a trait was not unique to him, as most members of the Wang clan had similar traits. They would choose one Tao companion and live their entire life being faithful. Such an anomaly often made people wonder whether it was this reason why the Wang clan was so powerful. In each generation they will often have one Tao companion and one child. Certain people believe the heir of the Wang clan gathered the entire bloodline, talent, and luck of the clan, hence why only one child per generation. So, what is our next step of action? Their ancient clan has been planning for countless years to set up a devil catastrophe and save the world, thus gathering merit and luck. Unfortunately, with one chess move from the heavenly emperor, all the pawns they left in the western continent were slaughtered, ruining their plans. Now they have to worry about the possible merger of the two Wang clan, losing the destiny of the Tao father. The situation has changed, so we need to adapt, said Wu Fenghuang. Our main objective is to revive the clan, and the first step in that plan is for me to become an eternal emperor. And the main requirement for this transition is merit, analyzed Huofeng Huang. The Heavenly Emperor has great ambitions. According to my calculations, the influence of the court will probably spread to other world communities. As long as we play our part, it's not impossible to gather the needed merit. Are we just abandoning all our efforts so easily? There are devil cultivators in other world communities, but we can still proceed. I prefer if we relied on ourselves than on the grace of the Heavenly Emperor. Our plan will have a backlash, you should all know this, said Huofeng Huang, and the elders agreed. Their actions can indeed save the world, but they cannot completely escape the karma for unleashing these devil cultivators. So, there will be backlash, but the clan's plan is to use as little luck as possible to deal with it. By then, the clan's luck would have been so prosperous that such a loss would be minimal. The ancestors' wisdom to us has revealed much information, continued Huofeng Huang. The Heavenly Emperor's contradiction with us is that he feared the backlash of our actions would affect the Heavenly Emperor era. Everything that rises must fall. This era will be glorious, but it will eventually end. The backlash for our plan could be the catalyst to destroy that era. These people could deduce how Heavenly Tao used their actions to bring balance to the Heavenly Emperor era in the future, ending it after reaching its acceptable limit. Exactly, so unless we ever take the Heavenly Emperor position, we cannot proceed with the original plan, nodded Huofeng Huang. So what should we do? The answer to this question is simple, she replied with shining eyes. The world's political landscape will change in this era, with every faction trying their very best to cultivate heavenly emperors. So, if we want to revitalize our clan, we must cultivate as many competent heavenly emperors as possible and use the luck of the court to revitalize our clan's destiny. Is it possible for us to be as powerful as in ancient times? Or even surpass the Tao opening sect? Huofeng Huang was quiet. Unless their clan can cultivate a peerless genius like the current heavenly emperor, such a thing is not possible. Regardless, she did not want to give some of these elders a blow to their fragile hearts and ego. As long as we cultivate more heavenly emperors than them, we still have a chance, replied Huofeng Huang, deciding to say a partial truth. We need a step-by-step plan, said Huofeng Huang's father, who became one of the core elders of the ancient clan after his daughter's rise. The heavenly emperor promised to revert the environment to innate. This might be our chance, suggested someone. We now have the methods of becoming primarchs. Soon this method will become valuable. So, before this knowledge becomes public knowledge, we can use this time to establish as many advantages for our clan as possible. Once the environment changes and innate chi becomes ubiquitous, innate demon gods reappear, so the path of primarchs will shine again in the myriad emperor world. With their ancient clan's foundation with innate bloodlines, they will have a great advantage. True, even the demon race cannot compete with us in this area. The Heavenly Emperor will definitely try to delay the spread of the Primarch technique as much as possible to give the Tao opening sect an advantage. So, we only need to cooperate with him and aid as much as possible, added Huofeng Huang. What about the primordial god cultivation system? Do we want to spread it? That might not be a good idea. The Heavenly Emperor already said he would optimize the origin system. Plus, such a thing that involved the core destiny of the Tao opening sect, he won't play around. Two factions hold the destiny of Tao Father, the ancient clan and the Tao opening sect. Interestingly, both originated from the Wang clan after the Heaven opening emperor, and Qiyuan created a cultivation system and opened the Tao to all sentient beings. So, they knew the Heavenly Emperor would never allow any other cultivation system to replace the origin system, thus affecting one of the core luck of his sect. We don't need to spread our system and contradict with the Heavenly Emperor, said Huofeng Huang. But also don't need to be fearful about the situation. Many people will be interested in the primordial god system and will study or cultivate it. I deduce that some people will try to secretly get some technique from us. We can take this opportunity to get some benefits. Everyone nodded at this approach. No matter how powerful the Heavenly Emperor is, he cannot control people's curiosity and desires. Furthermore, not everyone is compatible with the origin system, so they might wish to try the primordial god system once the environments change. We have established an initial plan for how to deal with our relationship with the Heavenly Emperor. Now, let's discuss how to retrieve the god position we previously lost to the Eastern faction, said Huofeng Huang with killing intent flashing in her eyes. Yes, we cannot swallow that breath. The best solution would be for the Patriarch to become an Eternal. However, such a plan would take too much time. So, I propose we choose a few sealed heaven chosens and have them experience the heaven path tribulation. If we can cultivate a second 6-star pre-march, we can retake everything we lost. The elders agreed with this plan but also worried about the implications. A faction cannot have two voices, and another 6-star pre-march could lead to problems. Let's do it, said Huafeng Huang, fully confident of her strength. Her 5 sacred beast bloodline is not a joke. As such, she knew she could suppress anyone who tried to test her power. Chapter 931. Fear and Swift Reaction. Huh? Muttered Wang Wei as he sensed something. What happened? The power of fate flashed in his eyes, revealing most of the secrets of heaven and earth. The ancient clan's destiny has changed? He looked at the moon, his eyes penetrating the incalculable distance between his location and their small world. The Wang clan? Wang Wei concentrated as he soon discovered the truth. Someone removed all the imprints in their bloodline? Even their chi luck was blessed. Many thoughts flashed in his mind as he analyzed the situation. Did the ancient clan summon their ancestors? The one who appeared was the heaven-opening emperor. Wang Wei tried to see the past and discover the truth. However, an invisible power blocked all his attempts, making him understand someone of a higher power than him was involved in this situation. As such, he had no choice but to use his intelligence to analyze the situation. The changes in the clan's bloodline should have alerted him. Was he interested in my human fiend god bloodline? Why did he remove the clan's bloodline imprints? A sign of goodwill? Is he trying to merge the two clans? Numerous thoughts flashed in his mind as he analyzed numerous possibilities before coming to a conclusion. A merger in the lower dimension is impossible. However, it's still possible to work together in the future. He did not know much of the political situation of the upper dimension. The knowledge he stole from the primordial dragon was mostly based on the recent era after the parasites took over. Furthermore, most of the dragon's memories are about him sleeping and cultivating, trying to activate his bloodline. Something is wrong, thought Wang Wei after deducing what happened. The lower dimension is sealed, so it should not be so easy for the Sword Empress or the Heaven-Opening Emperor to interfere. Even the Academy had brief contact with Emperor Kong. Such an anomaly immediately caught his attention, so he began to analyze the situation. Supreme Unity should still have the advantage in the confrontation against true Heavenly Tao. So, if the latter can allow other people to interfere in the lower dimension, Supreme Unity should also have this power. There is a high chance he allowed true Heavenly Tao to break the rules so he can take the opportunity to intervene. Wang Wei immediately frowned. If that's the case, dealing with these traitors and spies will not be as easy as I anticipated. Wang Wei suddenly stood up as he thought of something. He immediately acted, which caused a sensation throughout the world. A giant hand appeared above the central continent, towering over one of the most dangerous places in the myriad emperor world, the Nether Hell. As soon as the hand appeared, it transformed into colossal chains that surrounded the place. "You dare!" roared a powerful voice before another gigantic hand emanated from the Nether Hell, trying to block the chains. However, before it succeeded, a dark gold dragon with 9 claws and a crown around its horn appeared and passed through the chains, leaving countless dragon marks on tattoos. The Heavenly Court's Chi Luck Dragon? Damn it. Little Heavenly Emperor, this is not over, roared Old Man Nether as he watched helplessly as he lost the newly acquired freedom. Wang Wei watched everything calmly, as expected. If he were Supreme Unity and secretly influenced the world, the best way to deal with himself would be to secretly help his enemy, and the best option is Old Man Nether, a powerful Empyrean living in the lower dimension. After regaining his freedom, he only needs to wait for the right time to sneak attack, and Wang Wei would suffer tremendously. Luckily, I acted fast enough, thought Wang Wei, feeling slightly scared after imagining the consequences. The good news is now I know Old Man Nether's strength does not exceed 75%. Plus, he seems very restricted in his actions and power. Wang Wei exhaled deeply before returning to his retreat, ignoring the chaos on the outside. He could foresee how scared many people would be. After all, the aura revealed by Old Man Nether is 100 times scarier than his own. Knowing such an existence as living next to them will keep many people awake. Of course, a few brave idiots will think this was an opportunity since there was someone who could balance the Heavenly Emperor's power. Wang Wei has already prepared for these idiots, leaving his power in the seal. Anyone who approaches with the intention of removing the seal will be annihilated, and Wang Wei will not even spare the faction behind them. Eternal Ascension World, the Dark Truth. Supreme Unity opened his eyes. Those damn Tao overlords are too smart for their own good, he thought coldly. With his strength, it was impossible for a little emperor to detect his methods. Even the heaven-opening Emperor's projection could detect the means he used to free Old Man Nether, so his plan failed only because the latter deduced what he wanted to do. The feeling was annoying since it felt like he had lost control of the situation. It was like someone was in his mind reading his thoughts. If only I could crush that little bug, thought Supreme Unity, looking at the woman next to him. A hint of annoyance flashed in his eyes before swiftly being replaced by his cold and emotionless face. Be patient. I only need to wait until the deal with Heavenly Book is concluded. Plus, these pawns can still be of value. Supreme Unity closed his eyes. Meanwhile, Mithraea was also deep in thought. I was careless, she thought after sensing the Empyrean aura that appeared in the lower dimension. Her action of stopping the dark truth is pointless because everything she tried was of no use. The fog was a power of a higher level of transcendence than her in Supreme Unity. As such, they could not stop its ever-growing presence. Luckily, the rate of growth was extremely small, indicating they had more time to deal with the situation. Mithraea stayed before the fog because it was easier to monitor Supreme Unity in this citation, and she also believes the latter felt the same. While I was doing things secretly, he was also not wasting time. I need to be more careful of him, she concluded. I also need to speed up things. Mithraea closed her eyes, but no one detected she sent a message to one of the 7 moons. Monk Twin Flower was cultivating, his body pulsating with the aura of the Grand Tao Source. He suddenly opened his eyes as a piece of information entered his mind out of nowhere. He did not panic as this was not the first time. However, he squinted after reviewing the message. Frowny face, find a way to kill Time Eater, no matter the cost. Twin Flower was in deep thought after reading his lord's order. Has it started? He thought. He had long known the 7 moons would not last long. He represented Mithraea, while 7 Cauldron represented Supreme Unity. From the beginning, their alliance was already divided, not to mention contradictions between certain members of the group. The hidden 8th member, Disaster, is a coward who runs away at the slightest sign of danger. Since the last meeting he disappeared and no one knew where he went. The situation is disadvantageous to the Lord. Unlike Supreme Unity, Mithraea no longer had any need for these people, so she no longer wished for them to control the Eternal Ascension world, suppressing everybody else. However, they would not easily accept handing over their powers, especially after making so many enemies. So, if he is not careful, everybody could turn on him. It's easy to aggravate the contradiction between 5 Feathers Phoenix and Undead Phoenix. However, she is the one with the most desire for power after the Earth Emperor. Time Eater has recently shown his edge, taking most of the power of the Alliance. I should be able to convince her and the Earth Emperor to ally with me and kill him. However, I also need to be on guard against 7 Cauldron taking action. As for Blood Dragon, the best way to deal with him is to create another civil war between the dragon race. Blood Dragon used cruel means to take control over the dragon race, making the majority of different branches hate him. 5 Feathers always wanted for her Phoenix clan to overwhelm the Dragon clan. I can use this fact to facilitate an alliance between us to deal with Time Eater. Twin Flower took a moment to refine his plan and waved his hand to secretly send a few messages. An hour later he stood up and disappeared from the room. He ensured he was so quiet that no one knew he had left. Alas, things did not proceed as he expected. After leaving, Twin Flower found himself surrounded by a powerful formation. Then, his pupils shrunk after seeing the person controlling it. You. Chapter 932. Old Det Wang Wei continued his cultivation. With each passing second, he deciphered fate's deepest mysteries and intricacies. The process was faster and more enjoyable than ever, with merit as an aid. Wang Wei did a few tests, restricting his comprehension level to understand the difficulty of cultivating in the Emperor realm. He also compared the difference between using and not using merit. According to his conclusion, merit can give a boost as big as 1,000 times acceleration, and that boost is to someone of his comprehension level, which probably reached the ceiling of the Chaos Universe. The difference was so big that Wang Wei wanted to cultivate 100% of the time using merit. Unfortunately, such a thing was not possible. After he finished the merit, he had a few achievements. First, his base cultivation reached 32% Grand Tao Source, 2% higher than the predicted 30%. The reason for this error was because of the Tao discussion he had with Su Shi and the others and the epiphany he experienced after talking to his ancestor. Wang Wei's second achievement is he completed the Heavenly Tao control of his force control skill. Heavenly Tao had a natural affinity for wielding laws or Taos. Controlling laws is no different from moving the limbs of any creature. Such affinity makes it possible for heavenly Tao to do extraordinary things with the laws of heaven and earth with little effort. Wang Wei took the opportunity of this retreat to study Old Man Tianji and this world's heavenly Tao. Then, based on the previous foundation and a deeper understanding of Lu Cheng's innate talent, he created this level. This technique has more potential, thought Wang Wei as he read the final product. So what's next? Empyrean control? Paragon control? Wang Wei shook his head. Empyreans and paragons were more powerful and had a deeper understanding of the Grand Tao source than heavenly Tao. However, it did not mean they had better control of it. After all, in some senses heavenly Tao was born or created from the Grand Tao source. So, the next level of this technique will be true heavenly Tao control and Grand Tao control. Maybe I will need to divide this realm because of the vast difference, but that's the outline. Wang Wei had a general outline of how to complete this source technique. The next modification is to elevate it to rank 2. Source techniques are divided into 3 ranks. The first rank corresponds to the Emperor realm, and the third rank is applicable to paragons. In other words, a second rank source technique allows Empyreans to fight above their percentage, and the third rank did the same for paragons. Wang Wei put away the book in his hand before checking his current strength. Still 69%. If I want it to be specific, it should be 69.5%. However, I now truly reached the tenfold battle realm. Most people who recognized his battle realm countered the extra 5% from his status as an immeasurable emperor. However, after this retreat, he truly achieved the tenfold realm, meaning even if his cultivation was only 20% Grand Tao source, he could still battle 69%. All of this is because of the 10% boost of his fleshly body after becoming on par with an eternal emperor and the completion of the force control skill. The next step is the taboo battle realm, and I have an idea of how I can reach it. But I need more information. Wang Wei no longer focused on his strength and took out another. This technique will be his main focus next. I always wanted to turn my life and death wheel innate talent into a longevity ability. Most of his innate talents are useless, so he wanted to improve them. The direction he chose is to elevate this innate talent to a first-rank longevity ability, granting him extra lives in the Emperor realm. I'm glad I exchanged knowledge about Monk Wu's 9 Nirvana heart. It should make things easier. Wang Wei did not know whether he could copy the monk's unique physique and acquire 9 extra lives. However, he was happy as long he succeeded with 3 or more. Wang Wei reviewed the information of the physique before putting away. He walked out of the room, ending his reclusion. As soon as he walked out, he saw countless golden threads floating above the court. Then they rushed towards him. Thank you, Heavenly Emperor, for opening knowledge to the people. Lord Heavenly Emperor, bless me so I can get the promotion at work. Lord Heavenly Emperor, bless my child to be free from sickness and misfortune. O mighty Heavenly Emperor, ruler of heaven and earth, please bless with great wealth and multiple marriage fate line. I want to honor my family's bloodline by having as many children as possible. There were trillions upon trillions of voices coming from every corner of the world, and Wang Wei listened to them calmly. The power of fate? It seems the sex propaganda worked. Wang Wei looked in the distance and saw he was not the only one receiving incense. People like Su Shi, Feng Heng, Ao Shen, and Huafeng Huang were worshipped by countless mortals in their respective regions. These people competed for the incense by preventing others from receiving worship in their territory. Wang Wei was the only one who could receive worship from all 5 continents and 5 seas. Even after opening their wisdom, these mortals still worship gods? Well, given how powerful cultivators are, it makes sense. Wang Wei did not complain much. After all, incense is another power that he can use to accelerate his comprehension of the Grand Tao source. He decided to store the incense for his next retreat. Wang Wei wanted to visit his family next but detected that someone was waiting for him. So, he invited the guest to come to the garden for tea. A few minutes later, Wang Wei sat cross-legged on a cushion with a small table before him, fresh hot tea releasing steam. Zhen Biu has seen the Heavenly Emperor, said the 5-element balance physique owner, using the highest courtesy. Wang Wei used his power to prevent her from kowtowing. Have a seat, said Wang Wei. I dare not, quickly replied Zhen Biu. She knew any great being had karma, so it's not simple to sit on the same level as them, receive their bow or any form of respect. For example, if an emperor bowed to a mortal, the karmic weight of their actions would immediately be the mortal. If the latter is a cultivator, their luck will instantly ruined, and they might die due to misfortune. There is no need to behave like this, said Wang Wei. I just want to follow the proper etiquette. Wang Wei looked at her and no longer insisted. He had absolute control over his karma, so she should be fine. However, he can't force her decision. I know why you're here, but am afraid you might be disappointed. Zhen Baiyu's face changed. Her worst fear had come true. The Heavenly Emperor did not want to repay his karma. It's not what you think, said Wang Wei calmly, taking a sip of his tea. Right before I proved the Tao, Emperor Five Heart seemed to have sensed danger and ran away to the upper dimension. She left? Yes, replied Wang Wei, not hiding his regrets. He truly wanted the artifact in her hands as it might be beneficial to his issue with the balance mechanism. Alas, the latter seemed to have an intuition for danger and ran away before he even became an immeasurable emperor. Zhen Biyu did not expect this outcome. She had already panned her life. With the help of her sect, she successfully purified her second soul, returning it to the pure heart state. She even took the risk and revealed that she had a second soul that was full of wisdom and a strategic mind, showing the upper echelons of the palace that she was the perfect heaven chosen. Now, all she had to do was wash her karma before sitting on the throne and becoming a heavenly emperor. But now she learned she could not achieve complete freedom. Don't worry. Since I said I would repay my karma, I will keep my word. Wang Wei raised his hand and held a red thread connected to Zhen Biyu and somewhere far away. Then he crushed it with ease. Now you're free, you are no longer a clone but your own self. Zhen Biyu felt a heavy weight lifted from her shoulder. The karma binding her and Emperor Five Heart was crushed, and even their fate was separated and no longer entangled. She felt free and without any burden. Thank you, Your Majesty, for your benevolence, said Zhen Biyu, bowing 90 degrees. Wang Wei did not stop her this time and calmly nodded. Immediately afterward, she left the court and returned home. Is this the loneliness of being at the top? Muttered Wang Wei after watching her leave. He sighed deeply. Luckily, I have people who can keep walking with me until the end of this path. Wang Wei disappeared from the court, returning home. Chapter 933. Swordsmanship World. Wang Wei appeared in the backyard of the Wang clan manor. The first thing he saw was his father training his swordsmanship. He held a sword in his hand, slashing repeatedly at a wooden dummy. The odd thing is his slash left no marks nor cut anything. It was like his sword was intangible and passed through the solid object. However, Wang Wei knew this was not the truth. He could see that with each swing, his father's sword would pass through the gap between the atoms and subatomic particles of the wooden dummy, given the illusion that it was intangible. Such subtle control of his sword is a display of his father's swordsmanship realm. Why are you here? Said Yu Yan with a gentle smile after noticing him. Do you want me to make you something to eat? No, I'm fine. What's wrong? You look distracted. Wang Wei sighed. No, I just have a lot of things to do and am thinking about where to begin. Take your time, there is no need to hurry, she suggested. I may not have as much time as I anticipated. Is it because of what happened to the Nether Hell? Asked Wang Tian, who ended his training. Yes, nodded Wang Wei. Dark forces are moving against me, so I must hurry. Wang Tian sighed after hearing this, his voice a little desolate. I would offer you my help. Alas, there is no longer anything I can do to help you. I'm fine with just the emotional support, reassured Wang Wei. The family of three sat down and Yu Yan still gave him some snacks and tea. How was your retreat? She asked. Productive, replied Wang Wei. How about you guys? How are you adapting to your new changes? Very satisfied. I've modified my bloodline to fuse my sword Dao. I can't wait until I can reach 10 revolutions, said Wang Tian with a smile. With the increase in his fleshly body cultivation, his sword and sword realm has increased exponentially. Now he only needs to finish the 9-extremity foundation, wash away his karma, and wait for the next generation. That's good to hear. What about your mother? I'm just happy that body refining is so easy. Although painful, it is much easier than before. You can cultivate the Fiend God Body 12 revolution, and I protect you during the tribulations. However, I'm afraid you cannot leave the entire bloodline to the Yu clan. That's fine, replied Yu Yan. She knew little about fiend gods and paragons, so she understood that the Yu clan did not have the virtue or destiny to become a fiend god class family. Maybe after she one day becomes a paragon, but it's not possible now. What about the resources needed? She knew this technique was not simple and required unique and high-level resources. Don't worry, replied Wang Wei. Although he finished the blood pool he used for his cultivation, he had another way to make up for his mother. So he waved his hand to manifest a river made of red threads, the river of karma. He connected it to the myriad Emperor World's river of time, changing the karma of the past to affect the future. Then, a few secret realms that contained the blood of innate demon gods and survived the Null Era suddenly appeared in the myriad Emperor World. For some reason they were miraculously never discovered during the long history of the world, and their creator forgot about them or died immediately after setting them up. Wang Wei raised his hand, and 6 small cubes floated on his palm. These 6 secret realms should be enough for you to cultivate the 9th revolution. I will get you the rest after you prove the Tao. Wang Tian sighed deeply. I truly marveled at your power. Such a heaven-defying method. Won't you get in trouble for using it? Asked Yu Yen. Don't worry, it will be fine as long as I don't do it too often. Good, she nodded before taking the 6 cubes. Then Wang Wei took out another sphere and handed it to his father. Is this? Yes, your swordsmanship world, replied Wang Wei. He spent a great deal of effort in creating this world. The first step was creating a world using Spacetime Tao before using Fate Tao as its core to evolve all 3,800 main Tao, creating a complete world. This process was easier than expected since Wang Wei studied Heavenly Tao through Old Man Tianji and could basically copy the essence of the Myriad Emperor world and recreate it for this swordsmanship world. As a result, the world was a quasi-heavenly world, where people could reach the quasi-emperor realm. After Wang Wei created the world, he only needed to accelerate time until creatures were born. He connected the world to the source chi space to instill spiritual chi and allow people to cultivate. He sent a projection to the world to preach the Tao, introducing the origin system to the people of that world. However, his preaching was extremely biased toward Sword Tao. All the inheritance he passed down involved swordsmanship. Furthermore, Wang Wei blessed the Sword Tao in that world with great destiny and luck. As a result, 95% of cultivators in the entire world are swordsmen. Finally, he accelerated the world to more than 500 million years, allowing countless geniuses to grow, die, and develop Sword Tao. It's a shame I could not create a genuine heavenly world, said Wang Wei with a sigh. He knew even if he were a paragon he could not create a heaven will and grant people immortality and eternity. Regardless, Wang Wei did imitate the heaven will system. In each generation all the swordsmen in the world will battle it out for the tithe of Sword God, recognized by heaven and earth. Wang Wei made sure the highest lifespan of the world is 1 million years, and the final winner will have an additional 4 million years. The cultivators of that world do not care for immortality, however the longer they live the more time they have to cultivate their swordsmanship. Wang Wei even left a competition between the sword gods to see who is more powerful. Every sword god will condense an imprint with all their strength and sword Tao accomplish before their death. Then the imprint will evolve a projection that competes with all previous sword gods to decide who is the best and acquire the title of Sword Emperor. What a brilliant world, said Wang Tian, his eyes shining brighter than ever. Such a world is a wet dream for any swordsman. I've never seen you so happy even when Wire was born, said Yu Yen with dangerous eyes. Wife, you've wronged me, Wang Tian quickly said, making his wife only snort coldly at him. Sometimes she wondered whether he loved swordsmanship more than her. Thinking about this, she decided to give him the cold shoulder for a few days. Are you satisfied with this world? Asked Wang Wei, changing the topic to prevent his father from getting into too much trouble. More than satisfied. However, I feel 500 million years is too little. Can you expand the time? Wang Tian wanted nothing more for this world to develop longer and have more sword gods. Then, when he sends his incarnations he will have more competitors for the position of Sword Emperor. However, Wang Wei shook his head. I have prepared a few specialties for you in the current generation. It will be too much of a pain to change it now. Oh, specialty? I've crafted some special, talented swordsmen for you. Wang Wei did not explain too much. He modeled many swordsmen in the current generation of that world after characters from his previous life. So, his father will fight Shimen Chuanxue, the cold and ruthless swordsman dressed in white. There is also Dugu Qiubai, the creator of the technique Dugu 9 swords, who can break all martial arts. Dugu Qiubai was lonely and invincible all his life, and his name literally means to seek defeat. There is also the heroic Wuming or No Name, a swordsman from the novel and manga Wind and Cloud. There is the immortal swordsman Li Bai, known for his poetry and his swordsmanship. In general, Wang Wei modeled many characters after people from his previous life, allowing them to develop and create techniques that fit their settings. I'm looking forward to it. By the way, can we recruit some of these swordsmen into our sect? Asked Wang Tian. I'm afraid it's not possible, replied Wang Wei. I tried to recruit these sword gods but accidentally activated a hidden mechanism of heaven and earth. Only Empyreans, Paragons, and Tao monarchs can create a perfect world and lives that can exist outside these worlds. The world Wang Wei created was too perfect and unbalanced, making true heavenly Tao restrict them from existing outside of that world. Are there any exceptions? Asked Yu Yan. Creation Tao, but even then things would not be so simple, replied Wang Wei. I guess it makes sense. Wang Wei was about to say something else when he sensed something. Grandfather's out of seclusion, he uttered, looking in one direction. Chapter 934, Clarity. Wang Chang walked toward the three of them. Wang Wei could immediately tell he was different. The death aura surrounding him was gone, replaced by an unmatched vitality. From afar, he could hear the sound of his blood rushing to his body, followed by his powerful heartbeat. He could already imagine the old man's strength but noticed something else. He was not as happy as usual. Normally, he would have been laughing his heart out, talking as loud as his heart wished. However, his grandfather seemed quiet until he reached the table. My favorite grandson, how are you? Said Wang Chang before patting Wang Wei on the head. I'm your only grandson, replied Wang Wei, rolling his eyes. But Grandpa, why do I feel like you're not in the best mood? Hey, said Wang Chang with a sigh. I left my seclusion, prepared to go show off to my old friends. Then I realized most of them are already dead. The room was quiet. Unlike Wang Wei's Heaven Will battle, where he had the strength to spare his competitors, his grandfather's battle was cruel, and only a few people survived. Although most of these people were his rivals, they were also people he knew the longest. Some were only competitors because of the circumstances. They respected each other and could be described as friends. Alas, for the sake of immortality and eternity, they had to kill each other. Don't talk about these sad things, said Wang Chang. What were you guys talking about before I arrived? Wang Tian immediately took this opportunity to change the subject, talking about his swordsmanship world. Could we recruit talent from that world? Asked Wang Chang. Although our sex once had the most powerful swordswoman in the world, we have not done a good job cultivating more swordsmen. Is the Tao opening sect a swordsman sect? Yes and no. They have the knowledge and resources to cultivate potent swordsmen. However, only once in a while would a decent swordsman appear in their sect. No, replied Wang Tian, explaining what Wang Wei said. In that case, could we use the technique they developed? Asked Wang Chang. There should be no problem, responded Wang Wei, nodding his head. Although the highest level is quasi-emperor, the majority of them are ingenious, containing unique sword Tao ideas and applications. I just had an idea, said Wang Tian. Could the members of the Sword Alliance inherit the destiny of this world's sword god? That's not a bad idea, replied Wang Wei. The sword gods in his world are basically emperors limited by their world and cannot prove the Tao. Their sword Tao is the best in their generation, reaching the limit of the world. If someone in the myriad emperor world could inherit these sword gods' destiny, it would be like inheriting a great emperor's destiny. It's also a way to continue the legacy of these swordsmen limited by the world they were born in. I have already gathered the imprints and destinies of all the sword gods into the Sword Tao Temple. You can send members of the Sword Alliance to the temple to see if they can inherit any of these destinies, explained Wang Wei. Will there be any trouble with heavenly Tao? No, Wang Wei shook his head. Your idea is the same as using another world's destiny to nourish the myriad emperor world. Having the destiny of an emperor did not mean these people were guaranteed to prove the Tao. On the contrary, if too many people of the Sword Alliance had sword god destiny, they would become fate sheep to heavenly Tao. Once any of them die without proving the Tao, heavenly Tao will take their unique sword Tao destiny, break it into multiple parts, and scatter it into the myriad emperor world, allowing many future generations to compete for that sword god destiny. The final winner will recondense the sword god destiny before competing with other people for the heaven will to prove the Tao. After so many battles, the people who can prove the Tao with the sword god destiny would have been tempered to the extreme. I understand, nodded Wang Tian. The sword god destiny is indeed valuable, but only if its owner can keep it and prove the Tao. Otherwise, if they died, the only fate of such destiny is to be gutted and nourished by the world. Grandpa, now that you have such potential, what are you going to do? Asked Wang Wei. I have been debating with myself, replied Wang Chang, who took Wang Wei's snacks and directly ate it. Yu Yan was distressed but could not say anything about her father-in-law, so she could only give her son more while blaming her husband. After thinking about it, I have two choices. Firstly, continue to develop my bloodline until I reach 75 to 80 infant fiend god force, and fight 9 suns with my fleshly body. The second option is to continue our previous path, becoming an insurgent Dao ancestor. With my bloodline, it should be easier to become an insurgent and can reduce the resources needed for my bloodline. Developing his bloodline in the lower dimension is difficult, so Wang Chang was leaning more toward the second option. Do you still want to reincarnate? Asked Wang Wei, making the room quiet down. Father, you don't have to. You can still prove the Dao in the upper dimension with your bloodline. Wang Chang shook his head. I want to have my own glory and brilliance, sitting on the throne and ruling the court. I still want to bring glory to our Dao opening sect, and I cannot do any of these things in this life. Wang Wei still sighed despite already knowing the answer. I support your choice. But you should be prepared to suffer from the balance mechanism after you reincarnate. He knew how powerful the sect would become in the future and how much it would be restricted by the stupid mechanism. So, future emperors of the sect will have to be extra careful. I'm not worried about this, said Wang Chang nonchalantly. Oh, why not? Asked Wang Wei, not hiding his curiosity. By the time I reincarnate, you should be strong enough not to give any face to true heavenly Dao. By then, how dare it make things difficult for me? Wang Wei looked at the old man, his open mouth revealing his current emotions. Then he suddenly laughed as boisterously as his grandpa used to. Ah. Yes, I've been so annoyed about this balance mechanism that I failed to see the core of the issue. As long as I can reach their heights, how dare true heavenly Dao restrict my sect? Half-step transcendence, it's only a matter of time before I reach such a realm, thought Wang Wei with a brilliant smile. Boom. The sky above the myriad emperor world changed, countless golden lights, golden lotus and Dao voices echoed between heaven and earth. Many people were shocked by this natural vision, wondering what had happened. However, after a few deductions and divination they were speechless. The answer was that the heavenly emperor was so happy that heaven and earth changed to celebrate this mood. The most frustrating aspect of this vision to these people is that it was not something the heavenly emperor did himself. The man was so powerful and noble heaven and earth would sometimes respond to his mood. In the end, these people could only sigh and return to their daily lives. Meanwhile, Wang Wei was in a good mood and ignored what was happening outside. Grandpa, thank you for enlightening me. Although I don't know what's going on with you, I'm glad I can help. Wang Chang only said what was in his mind. He knew his son and grandson's potential, so he had unconditional faith in them, especially his grandson. As for your issue, there is no need to make a choice and use both of them, continued Wang Wei, his smile not abating in the slightest. Becoming a Dao ancestor and coming into contact with the Grand Dao Source will immensely benefit you after your reincarnation. As for your bloodline, there are enough resources in the lower dimension to raise it to the eternal level. In the worst-case scenario, I will seal you in a world place full of innate qi, speed up the time, and allow your bloodline to naturally develop through age. The Wang clan's human fiend god bloodline functions like every fiend god bloodline, requiring an extremely long time to grow and develop. So, any members who inherited the 10th revolution do not need to cultivate and rely on the natural growth of their bloodline to reach 100 infant fiend god force. The only downside is they might take countless yuan epochs just like cultivating in the emperor realm. No, the time needed would be even longer than normal. Fiend gods are born in primordial chaos and can absorb primordial qi at birth to grow their bloodline. But the Wang clan only have access to spiritual and maybe innate qi, so their growth time should be even longer. Chapter 935, Rise of Mortals. That's fine, nodded Wang Chang. As long as he can defeat 9 suns, the last flaw on his Dao heart will be fixed. Then he can be reincarnated, hopefully with the same unparalleled talent as his son and grandson. Well, forget the anomaly that is his grandson, he will be satisfied with some of the talent of his son. Afterward, he can sit on the throne and become a heavenly emperor, looking down on myriad worlds and races, bringing glory, luck and destiny to the Dao opening sect. By then, if everything goes correctly, he might even see his wife again. Although the chances were slim, they were better than nothing. By the way, do you have a way to find 9 sons? Asked Wang Chang. Yes, nodded Wang Wei. His sons made a deal with me to protect him. In return, he sold his father's information to me. Through their bloodline, I can help you find him in the upper dimension. I guess I should not be surprised Emperor 9 sons would side with these parasites, sneered Wang Tian. Wang Wei disagreed with his father's words. He did not know 9 sons' exact circumstances, whether he was forced, was only externally on their side while secretly plotting against them, or was truly a villain who feared for his life. He would not villainize the man because of what happened in his grandfather's generation. Simultaneously, he also won't have any sympathy. His grandfather needs to defeat him, maybe even kill him to heal his Dao heart, so 9 sons have to either suffer or die. Let's not talk about this, said Wang Chang, and everybody agreed to change the subject. Wire, now that you left your seclusion, does that mean it's time for me to move to my family? Asked Yu Yen with worry in her eyes. Now is indeed the perfect time, uttered Wang Wei. He had opened the wisdom of all mortals in this plane, so it was indeed time to prepare for his mother's proving Dao method. However, there is no need to hurry. Let's wait until after Li Jun and Yan Liling become emperor. Although it was the perfect time, he did not want to separate his family so soon. Won't that affect the plan? Don't worry about it, reassured Wang Wei. We might even use them to prove the Dao in the deception method. That's fine then, nodded Yu Yen. Wang Wei spent the rest of the day with his family. The next day he had 2 things on his schedule. The first one was having a talk with Ancestor Wuxia. However, the latter would take a few dozen years before exiting his retreat, so Wang Wei focused on the second task. He did not leave the sect but sent an invisible projection to travel through the central continent. His first destination was the Emperor Enlightening Academy's domain. He wanted to check the development of their mortal civilization. 700 years passed since the second court meeting, leaving 300 years until the third. Such a long time was more than enough to build a decent spiritual rune civilization, especially since they were copying the Dao opening sect's model. As soon as Wang Wei arrived at this place called Black Stripe City, he felt a strange incongruity. He saw many modern concepts in the form of constructs like cars, airplanes, trains, and buses. He even saw people with flying carriages, changing the setting from modern day to futuristic. However, according to his modern Earth cognition, everyone dressed in ancient clothes had long hair and spoke like ancient people. It's like ancient people suddenly developed futuristic technology, but these technologies also looked ancient, thought Wang Wei, secretly shaking his head. Wang Wei continued walking and noticed everyone had one thing in common: a bracelet on their wrists. He watched a young man across the street tap his hand on the bracelet, and a holographic screen appeared before him. He seemed to have read something, and a smile manifested on his somewhat handsome face. Then he began to press on the screen before it disappeared. Wang Wei looked at another person who was talking to the screen before them. Oddly, no sounds came from their mouths. Even the person standing next to them could hear what they were saying. Did they make improvements to the communication talismans? Not bad, commented Wang Wei before walking away. He walked around the city and noticed many libraries. Excellent, he thought. In the past, knowledge only belonged to noble mortals as a way to control the lower class. Now, knowledge was accessible to everyone. He continued walking and he heard many people talking excitedly on his way. Did you hear? What is it? A cultivator will give a lecture in the academy on spiritual runes. Why are you so excited? Wasn't there one last month? Yes, said a third person in this group of 3. I heard the Emperor Enlightening Academy is trying to catch up to the Dao opening sect's region. So, many cultivators have given lectures in the past 100 years, trying to accelerate the growth of our civilization. You guys don't understand, said the first person who spoke. According to my sources, the person who will give the lecture is a quasi-emperor and an alchemist. After hearing the word, quasi-emperor, the other 2 showed a look of envy, longing, and fear. In this current age of information, everybody knows the existence of cultivators and how powerful they are. As such, they understand the capability of such a powerhouse. An alchemist? Such a cultivator should deeply understand divine runes, so their explanation of spiritual runes should be very profound. The 3 of them were extraordinary citizens who could tap into the potential of their spiritual power. As such, they enrolled in school at a young age to learn about spiritual runes in the hope of developing their civilization. That's why I'm so excited. No matter what, we must attend this lecture, even if we have to buy a seat in the black market. True, nodded one of them before a look of worry took over his facial expression. I hope another northern barbarian will not affect the lecture like last month. The faces of the other changes, we're in public, so don't say these words. The group looked around to see if anyone heard them, and then they rushed to their destination. Wang Wei calmly watched this with a smile. Then he continued his tour. He first went to see a recorded story. He chose a romance story. He could see through such a low-level illusion with his power, but he shut down his mind and enjoyed the movie. However, Wang Wei regretted his action. The movie was a tragedy where the main character lost the love of his life, deciding to live the rest of his life alone in the mountains. The movie reminded him of Wu Hong. After all, he also saw a movie the last time they met. As such, he was depressed after exiting the cinema. Terrible movie, I will give it a bad review. The pettiness in him activated to the max. So, he went to the best publisher in this city and secretly influenced the head editor to write a terrible review of the movie in the next newspaper release. That's better, muttered Wang Wei, his mood drastically improved. He did not care about the commotion it would create if the mighty heavenly emperor were seen as so petty, or the consequences that would befall the creators of that movie had the world known the heavenly emperor did not like their story. After venting his negative emotion, Wang Wei continued his tour. He visited a temple nearby. At the center of the temple were 5 statues, and he recognized the main one, Su Shi. Countless people entered the temple and offered their worship, asking for blessings. The majority of them asked for their offspring to be born as extraordinary citizens. They were smart enough to leave my share, thought Wang Wei. The temple did not have his statue, but there were plenty of mentions of him and the court. As such, plenty of mortals prayed to him instead of Su Shi and the other gods from the academy. Moreover, he could tell he was the most popular god in the world. Most mortals are not really religious, but they respect the gods because of their strength and presence. So, when they pray or think of any god, the first that comes to mind is the most powerful one, the Heavenly Emperor. Let's check other regions, thought Wang Wei before heading to the transmission gate for mortals. He created an identity before buying a ticket to travel to another domain. The price is too expensive. In his sex domain, mortals do not have to pay so much to use the subspace. However, it's understandable. After all, the Tao opening sect has been developing their mortal civilization for more than 300,000 years, and they have reached the limit. These factions are doing nothing but catch up and have only been developed for 700 years. It's not hard to understand why they are still way behind. Chapter 936, Rise of Mortals 2. Wang Wei stood before a gate full of runes. Although his statue was everywhere in this city, no one recognized him. He observed the large gate, feeling the subtle fluctuation emanating from it. He remembered how the world was when he first came and how much influence he had on this world. Back then, if you had told anyone that mortals could master the power of spacetime on their own, 99% of cultivators would have laughed in your face, while the remaining 1% would look at you oddly and not say anything out of politeness. He waited a few minutes until it was his turn. According to instructions, he stood in a circle before the door. Then a flash of light appears around him and he disappears. A controlled wormhole? Not bad, he thought before finding himself inside an all-white space that was shining as bright as the stars. His mind seemed to feel like it was looking at infinity itself. If I were a mortal, then this subspace would indeed be a version of infinity, thought Wang Wei. Before long, he found himself in another room with a magic circle on the ground. There was no gate around him, but Wang Wei could tell the entire compound was the teleportation gate. A woman stood before him with a gentle smile. She immediately welcomed him and explained how to leave the compound. Wang Wei thanked her before leaving. Let's see what's different between this Green Lotus City and Black Stripe City, thought Wang Wei. Green Lotus City is in the Tai Profound Gates domain, so he wanted to know whether there was any difference. He walked around the city and to Wang Wei's disappointment, there wasn't much difference except for the god temples. As a religion, Taoism had gods even before the heavenly court, and the people living in their domain were used to worship different gods. However, the Tai Profound Gate would always disperse the incense gathered, and the act of praying was more of a way to condense their religion's qi luck by better controlling the mortals. How stubborn, thought Wang Wei, thinking are these Taoist monks followed the absolute beginning emperor's edict like it was absolute. After shaking his head, Wang Wei visited a few more places in the central continent before heading to the southern continent. His first destination was Heartfire City in his old sect's domain, the Origin Pill Dao sect. As soon as he arrived, he discovered something different. Most mortals had tattoos on them. Some hid them with some sort of potion. Others naturally could hide them in their bodies, while the rest did not care and let them show. Totem warriors? Has it spread to mortals? Wang Wei was intrigued, so investigated. He went to a hospital and saw a bunch of children that had been born. Then a caretaker or nurse pushed them into a special room with countless runes engraved on the ceiling. She activated something and the runes descended on the children's body, creating a tattoo. Some of the children began to emit light in their forehead where their Niwen palace was. The nurse had a holographic screen before her and would identify these children as extraordinary. As for the other children, the light emanates from their bodies. I see, thought Wang Wei, understanding the situation. The mortal civilization in the south did not follow the Tao opening sex model but created their own unique civilization. The citizens did not use things like meditation, potions, pills, or rune array to create extraordinary citizens that awakened their spiritual power. Instead, they directly engraved special runes on the people's bodies at birth, activating their potential and spiritual power. Meanwhile, ordinary citizens do not need to practice martial arts to wash and nourish their bodies with spiritual qi, thus strengthening them and prolonging life. The totem given to them at birth will automatically absorb spiritual qi from the environment and replace the role of martial arts. Different paths to the same destination, thought Wang Wei with a smile. He was glad these people did not directly copy his sect. That would be boring. It's good for the mortal spiritual rune civilization to have variety. He then proceeded to analyze the difference between these two mortal civilizations. The totem allows this citizen to awaken their spiritual power at birth, saving them a great deal of time. However, my people who have to meditate for a long period of time before succeeding, their spiritual powers are scattered and harder to control. It's the same for body totem. They don't need to practice martial arts, but their strength is not as good as the sex mortals. However, they can also add more totems to their bodies to make up for this fault. In general, each had its advantages and disadvantages. If Wang Wei had to choose, he would lean toward the totem warriors. However, they have not been developing long enough to be even close to his sect's mortal civilization. By the time they catch up, his mortals would have adopted some of the advantages of this totem civilization. Wang Wei walked away and continued to observe this city. Due to the influence of the southern continent's professions, the mortal civilizations developed faster than the others. Things like pharmacology and rune artifacts excelled in the south. Arrays are not well developed in any mortal civilization because mortal spiritual power is too weak to borrow the strength of heaven and earth, so they must rely on artifacts, similar to technology, to do everything. Wang Wei took a soaring phoenix construct, heading to the nearest city. As he sat in the plane that was flying in the air, a sense of achievement overcame him. He looked through the window and saw endless stretches of land, forests, and mountains. This world is too big. After more than 700, the mortal population had drastically increased, but they still occupied a small part of the population. However, if they continue to reproduce at such a rate, after a few million generations, an issue of overpopulation might occur. Should I plan for this? He thought about it for a moment and decided to ignore it. Once the court spreads to the lower realm and other world communities, mortal migration will help with this problem. Additionally, Wang Wei knew that this world will not always be peaceful. After he leaves, not all heavenly emperors will be able to reign in these ambitious cultivators, allowing mortals to grow and develop. Once a weak emperor takes control, the cultivators will have no restraint, fighting everywhere and destroying countless mortal cities and civilizations. They must be restrained, thought Wang Wei before continuing his tour. He focused on observing the gods of the southern continent. Su Shi is worshipped as the god of the south, along with some gods from the academy. However, to adapt to the local situation, Su Shi also allowed gods that originated from factions in the south to be worshipped as well. After visiting the south, Wang Wei looked in the direction of the origin Pil Dao sect. Lu Cheng's destiny and fate were still shrouded in a cloud that blocked all his investigation. However, his fate shadow guard has infiltrated the sect and learned the latter is refining a pill, and he seemed obsessed with it. Moreover, Lu Cheng went to great lengths to hide it from others, especially him. Flame Emperor, what are you planning? Thought Wang Wei. He analyzed the situation countless times and had many theories. Alas, there was not enough information to come to a conclusion. It doesn't matter. I have a feeling your path will lead to me in the end, thought Wang Wei before leaving. He headed to the eastern continent, trying to see if their civilization was anything unique. As soon as he landed, he sensed the difference. The mortal civilization in the east seemed to have inherited the martial spirit even present in the cultivation world of the east. They were also greatly influenced by the fact that most swordsmen's lineage was in the east. The martial art that Wang Wei developed to help people keep fit turned into a world of mortal martial arts, with mortals who became as strong as divine altar realm cultivators. Moreover, this was not the only unique aspect of the Eastern mortal civilization. A grand event was happening in Warrior City, so Wang Wei bought a ticket to the Colosseum. In his private room, Wang Wei calmly watched the events. When it began, his mouth twitched. Human versus robots? He thought. At the center of the stadium was a man in martial clothes with a long sword. Opposite him stood a humanoid puppet more than 5 meters tall. Wang Wei could tell Immortal was inside the puppet, controlling it like an exoskeleton suit. The battle was thrilling, at least it was to the crowd. In the end, the swordsman won as he successfully chopped the puppet made of wood and ores harder than steel. Wang Wei noticed he was an extraordinary citizen who could place temporary runes on his body to boost his physical attributes. Rune martial art? Human ingenuity is truly a wonderful thing, thought Wang Wei before staying to watch the next battle. It was the same swordsman against a divine sea cultivator. The final result was the cultivator's victory, but he barely won. Wang Wei could tell he was trying his best. The cultivator left the Colosseum feeling humiliated. However, he did not dare act out. The mortal civilizations had no problem dealing with low-level cultivators like himself. Furthermore, the heavenly court did not allow any cultivators to mess with mortals. Wang Wei shook his head. The man accepted the Colosseum invitation, probably thinking it was easy money. But who knew he was only inviting humiliation to himself? In the end, it's because cultivators have not truly integrated with mortals, concluded Wang Wei, but that was to be expected. After all, it has only been 700 years. Extraordinary citizens can now live between 250 to 300 years, meaning only 2 generations passed for them, let alone cultivators. So, there is still a lot more work to do before a perfect integration could appear. In the end, it might not even be perfect. More importantly, the court needs to have strict written rules. Wang Wei has shown how he felt towards mortals, so these factions followed his will. It did help they could also benefit. However, the heavenly court has yet to establish strict and written rules for everybody to follow. A lot of work has to be done in the next meeting, thought Wang Wei while tasting the unique food of the East. He enjoyed tasting the food of each civilization. So far, his favorite has been the spiciness of the South. After the battle, nothing interested him, so Wang Wei headed to the Western continent to check how the monks were doing. Chapter 937, Rise of Mortals, 3. Wang Wei arrived in the Western continent through the mortal subspace traveling technology. He was happy with the changes he saw so far, especially with the transportation technology. Before he forced the world to change, most mortals would be born and die in the same domain they were born. No, forget the domain, all of them would spend millions of generations stuck in the 10,000-kilometer radius of where they were born. Only a few things like natural man-made disasters, dynasty changes, and famine would make them change location. However, 99% of them would die in the process, ending their lineage. Now, any mortal with a decent income can travel the entire world, going from one domain to another and from one continent to another. After everything is settled, use of the subspace should become cheaper, and everyone can travel anywhere with relative ease. After walking out of the portal, Wang Wei secretly used his power in the subspace. Order. No cultivators can enter the subspace. Disorder. Unless they have permission from the court and are going to do things like repair or fix certain problems. The subspace that connected the entire world of mortals was subtly changed, and only a few people noticed the difference. Then Wang Wei continued his visit. He visited the Western continent, trying to see their civilization. His first observation was that the devil cultivators were nowhere to be seen. I guess this should be expected, thought Wang Wei with a smirk. His eyes scanned the entire continent and saw most devil lineage had closed their gate, not allowing their disciples to participate in the outside world. A few were even discussed modifying their techniques to make it less reliant on negative karma. Meanwhile, during this absence, the Western Bliss sect had already controlled the Western White Tiger continent. I'm surprised the D clan did not resist, even secretly, thought Wang Wei. Feng Heng's approach to the Western continent was similar to a cultural invasion, slowly making Buddhism the dominant religion and influencing the West. He did not try to directly influence the cultivation part of the West but focused on the mortals, who were the main source of cultivators. Now, more than 70% of mortals would choose to enter the Western Bliss sect once they have the talent for cultivation. Without the threat of the devil, the D clan's prestige and power were tremendously reduced. It also did not help that they were a clan faction. 99% of the people in power were members of the D clan, sharing a bloodline. The remaining 1% were talented individuals they recruited outside, but the caveat is that they had to marry one of D clan's daughters, and the heir would have the name D. Many people do not accept becoming the D clan's son-in-law, making it difficult to recruit foreign cultivators. In the past, some people had no choice, either marrying into the D clan or becoming a devil cultivator. But now they could also choose the Western Bliss sect. Feng Heng was smart and created the Outer Hall, a faction in the Western Bliss sect that cultivated Buddhist techniques but did not believe in Buddha or the religion. These people only had to follow certain rules and precepts, and other things did not matter. Many people praise him for his benevolence, but Wang Wei could tell the trap in this method. If these people want to cultivate the Buddhist technique to a higher level, they must have a deeper understanding of the Dharma, meaning they must read and understand Buddhist scriptures and ideologies. In the end, most of them will convert to the religion to reach higher realms. Such a method is good in the early stages, but it will leave a flaw for Buddhism later on, thought Wang Wei. Since he was also part of Buddhism, he decided to warn Feng Heng. Does he already know? I see, he's using this method to strengthen the weak foundation of Buddhism. However, he should leave methods to deal with the issue before ascending. For a moment, Wang Wei thought the monk had allowed the idea of reviving Buddhism to affect his mind and made such an error. That's fine, thought Wang Wei before continuing his tour. The West also had a unique mortal civilization, and it involved Buddhism. While invisible, Wang Wei watched a battle between two individuals in a forest outside Holy Light City, a mortal monk and a Tier 3 demon beast. Donor, I know you were enlightened and know right from wrong. It's not too late to redeem yourself, serve your sentence and become free once again. Ridiculous. Demons should be free and wild. So what if I ate a few humans? This is my nature, replied the black tiger with white stripes on its back. Wisdom and knowledge are the keys to changing one's innate nature. So, it does not matter whether demons despise societal rules and restraint. All of you monks have golden tongues, I won't listen to any of your words. In that case, donor, please have a taste of my Arha subduing demon fist, said the monk before taking on a martial pose. The battle was fierce, but a few hours later, the monk defeated the tiger demon, who was on par with the divine altar realm cultivator, and captured it. Then he used a communication talisman to contact the government in Holy Light City to get the tiger. Buddhist martial art? Interesting, thought Wang Wei before leaving. He entered a temple and watched a young monk create a magical artifact. The monk held a beard before him and constantly chanted Buddhist mantras. Finally, a phantom of a monk floated above him and waved his hand to bless the bead, turning it into a magical artifact. Success, said the monk, who stood up in excitement. However, he was a mortal without cultivation or martial arts, so he was dizzy and almost fainted. Luckily, he held on to something before falling. Another path besides extraordinary citizens? Thought Wang Wei as he realized what Feng Heng had done. He revived many of the fallen monks from the incense era in the form of spirit, turning them into gods of Buddhism and receiving incense from mortals. In return, mortals who do not have the talent to become extraordinary citizens can become monks and learn scriptures. The truly talented or devoted ones can resonate with one of the spirits, becoming their patron gods. These patron gods will protect their chosen subjects and grant them abilities similar to extraordinary citizens, even their status in society on par. This is not a bad idea, thought Wang Wei. These spirits use their powers to feed the luck and prosperity of mortal civilization, which will feed back to them, allowing them to use an alternative form of cultivation. Some of them were probably immortals from the incense era. With this method, it's only a matter of time before they can return to their previous strength, thus boosting Buddhism's foundation as a lineage. These spirits have been dead for too long, rendering their imprints useless to revive them. Furthermore, too many of them died, so it was impossible for Feng Heng to revive them. Even someone with Wang Wei's strength would take too much effort, as he might have to tamper with the river of time if he wanted to revive these people. Such an act might lead to severe consequences, so he could not help Feng Heng even if he went to. So, this method of turning them into spirits or religious gods is an alternative to reviving them. Although the majority would lose their memories, there is still a chance that some will regain them. Wang Wei secretly nodded before continuing his tour. The mortal civilization in this continent had a peaceful atmosphere. Because of the influence of Buddhism, everyone had a deep wisdom and compassion aura surrounding them. The extraordinary citizens also had a unique path, since Buddhism had a deep knowledge of the mind, soul, and spiritual power. As such, their methods of awakening spiritual power for their people were excellent and can be described as top of the line. The demon school that Wang Wei created has also flourished in the West. Many monks have made it their mission to enlighten animals to turn into demons, teaching them about compassion, morality, and the idea of controlling their nature. Once the demons become enlightened and pass a test, they will receive the transformation pill, allowing them to change into human shape before the supernatural realm. Afterward, the demon race can integrate into the cultivation or mortal world based on their own choice or preference. Wang Wei was not surprised by this method, since the Tao opening sect had a similar approach. The fox race was in charge of the demon race's enlightenment in their territory. The only difference is that the demon race would integrate into the cultivation world, not the mortal one. Feng Heng was using the demon race's luck to nourish his mortal civilization. In turn, the demon race's luck will also benefit by adapting to the myriad emperor world's rules and the fact that the human race is the protagonist of heaven and earth. The monk's method entangled the two races' luck while still keeping the human race on top. Meanwhile, Wang Wei's method is to directly plunder the demon race's luck. His method is not bad and can be learned from, thought Wang Wei before leaving and heading to the north. The West's food was delicious, but the majority of it was vegetarian, and he wanted meat and something with more grease. Chapter 938, Rise of Mortals, Finale, Unedited Chapter. Wang Wei finally arrived in the north and immediately noticed the difference. The spiritual qi in nature was not as dwindling as it used to. Although it has not reached the same level as the weakest of the four continents, the West, it was not higher than the islands scattered between the continents that loose cultivators mostly habit. The northern continent was now a veritable place of cultivation for a heaven-will world. With Ao Shun as its protector, the demon race no longer has to rely on the Dao opening sect to scare away the other factions and prevent them from messing up the situation of the north. The demon race has entered an era of prosperity. The only problem is whether Ao Shun can leave enough foundation for them to retain such prosperity, thought Wang Wei before beginning his tour of the north. His first observation was that every human was walking in the street with a demon. The flying horse carriage, the dragon crawling construct, and even the soaring phoenix constructs were all designed to include both humans and demons. Interesting, thought Wang Wei as he guessed the situation of the north. He went to a school for humans. Today was a special day for these 10-year-old children. All of them looked excited and kept talking, to the point the teacher just gave up accomplishing anything in class. The word, awakening ceremony, was everywhere, and Wang Wei secretly watched everything without intervening. When the time arrived, all the children headed to a large stadium in the school. At the center was a large formation engraved on the floor. An adult brought the first child in the middle of the array. The child looked nervous and excited. He stood in the middle and waited. A few minutes later, bright light enveloped the formation, and a creature appeared beside him. It was a wind bunny, a demonic beast that had just awakened its bloodline and acquired basic intelligence. The bunny looked around before pausing at the child. It was from the demon school and knew not to easily attack humans. The formation continued to release brilliant lights. Finally, a marking appeared on the wind bunny's forehead and on the child's right hand. Immediately afterward, the confusing look on the bunny's eyes disappeared, replaced by more intelligent eyes. Meanwhile, the child was excited and jumped before being shocked. That's because he easily jumped more than 10 meters in the air and landed without any problem. Lei Fan, physical attributes, yelled the teacher in charge of the ceremony. Then the next child appeared. The creature that appeared before him was a crow with blue eyes. As soon as the mark appeared on the child's hand, a pressure released from his body that gave the illusion the surrounding space was twisted. Xia Fu, mental attribute, yelled the teacher, and many people looked at the child with envy and desire. They knew this person would be an extraordinary citizen, with high status. The teacher called the next children and she was also a physical attribute. Wang Wei's eyes brightened. A symbiotic relationship between humans and demons. Humans can acquire physical or spiritual power from demons, while demons will raise their intelligence. What a great civilization. Wang Wei could see the advantages and disadvantages of such a civilization. The humans of the north will be more powerful than normal humans from other continents, especially in the martial arts department. They will have longer lifespans, with normal citizens living up to 200 years and extraordinary citizens living up to 350 years. However, there is also a fatal disadvantage. If something happens to the demon, the humans will suffer tremendous backlash and have a 95% chance of dying. The situation is also reversed for demons, unless the human dies of old age. Ao Shun's method is quite ingenious. Demonic beasts or demons with pure bloodlines do not belong to mortals. The mortal version of demons are regular animals who have not awakened their wisdom and bloodline. As such, demonic beasts have a longer lifespan than humans because of their bloodline and because they are cultivators. As such, the majority of these demons who have placed a bond with their human counterpart will outlive their partners. With the contract, their intelligence increased, making cultivation in the early stages easier. Furthermore, they can use the human race's chi luck to nourish the demon race. This is not just the benefit they will receive. The demon race does not have the talent or ingenuity for professions like pill refining and talisman making. However, with their human partners, this problem will be solved. Wang Wei looked in the distance and saw the demon race's professions began to prosper. Beforehand, the demon race was only involved in the selling of materials. But now they started selling low-level pills, weapons, talismans, and arrays. The body-tempering realm requires pills that increase blood qi, and the best pills for this realm use the demon race's body and blood as the main material. The demon race had the advantage, so they have taken over the majority of the market for body-tempering pills. The divine body realm also requires tempering the body. If they play their cards well, they might take a big share of the market. However, the battle for such a market will not be as simple as the low-level one. There are more body-tempering realm cultivators in this world than divine body realm. However, the pill value of each realm is a world apart. As such, most factions will not allow the demon race to take part in their benefit without a significant fight. Unless the demon race creates a truly unique pill for the divine body realm, they have little to no chance to enter this market. Well, it's not like they won't have a chance, thought Wang Wei. Once the environment changes, everything will be reshuffled, and this will be Ao Shin's opportunity. Wang Wei's tour of the north was coming to an end, so he checked out the food. Given their relationship with demonic beasts, he thought the mortals of this place would have an aversion to eating animal meat. However, he was wrong. It seems whether it was humans or the demon race, they treated animals with no intelligence or bloodline as a completely different species. Their main culinary expertise involved all kinds of meat dishes, and Wang Wei enjoyed himself. In the end, he still had 2 designations left to check out, and he chose the sea to see how the sea race adapted to the changes of the world. Soon Wang Wei was not happy. He learned the process of entering the sea race's territory was extremely difficult and required a long process. So, if he wanted to enter the sea, he had to do so through his sect, the Loose Cultivator Alliance, or the Sword-Casting Villa's territory. These people are so stubborn. It seems I need to show them some color in the next meeting, thought Wang Wei, who used his power to directly teleport to the sea race's territory. Wang Wei immediately saw what kind of mortal civilization the sea race people created as he watched the people around him. He saw a human that was easily breathing underwater without any issues. He saw another human with fins and gills. There were other humans with sea race characteristics, allowing them to live and thrive underwater. So, they injected sea race bloodline into ordinary humans, trying to assimilate them into their clan? Thought Wang Wei before shaking his head. What a stupid method. Humans are the protagonists of the world, meaning luck and destiny are on their side. The sea was a haven for the sea race because normal humans could not live there, but now they made that possible. With human reproductive abilities, it's only a matter of time before they become the dominant population. Then, after these underwater humans cultivate a few great emperors and even an eternal emperor, then the sea race's dominance of the sea will be over. The sea race's situation is similar to the D clan in the West. They might want to include these new humans into their faction, but their clan only trusts members of the same race or bloodline, making it impossible for them to be inclusive. As such, it's only a matter of time before contradictions between these two races occur. Let's help these new humans, thought Wang Wei as he flicked his hand. He connected the destiny of the new humans to the chi luck of the human race, officially accepting their identity as humans instead of the sea race. From now on, the sea race cannot secretly manipulate their destiny and make them a part of their race. These people are humans and no one can change that. Now, I only need to make sure these humans are not discriminated against in the future, and they can contribute to the human race's luck and prosperity. Wang Wei was happy with his work and checked out the other sea territories. The area controlled by the Dao Opening Sect, the Loose Cultivator Alliance, and the Sword Casting Villa are not much different than he expected. They used arrays to create areas under the sea where normal humans could live and thrive. Spiritual runes were used as the core of civilization. The only difference is water and Yin spiritual runes are often used. Furthermore, with the many Yin resources of the sea, there are many ways to awaken spiritual powers for mortals, making their number of extraordinary citizens extremely large. Wang Wei's last destination was the Heavenly Tree Village. This place had a special place in his heart. He arrived invisibly because he knew the village had passed on his pictures, treating them as one of the ancestors of the village. If he showed up, the entire village would stop whatever they were doing and celebrate his arrival. The village had both changed and remained the same. It was still divided into inner and outer areas. The outer area had changed with a spiritual rune civilization thriving. Meanwhile, the inner area resembled a village from the old time, a village that was backward. Mortals and cultivators cultivated the land the old-fashioned way instead of using spiritual runes, puppets, and constructs to help. Wang Wei saw a weapon refiner that was quite accomplished in the outside world, teaching a bunch of mortal teenagers about blacksmithing. He looked like an old man in the village who had spent his entire life in the forgery and not a powerful cultivator who could refine quasi-emperor artifacts that are worth more than everything in this village. This person was not the only one. Wang Wei saw cultivators of different realms everywhere in the village. Some were in the farms planting, others carried water, raised cattle, built houses, or even hunting. Wang Wei watched everything before raising his hand to materialize a scripture frowny face mortal dust heart refining art. Interesting, thought Wang Wei as he flipped through the village's main cultivation technique. Although it only reached the level of a quasi-emperor, the technique was unique. Using the Tao heart to control and wield the law instead of the soul. The idea is brilliant. Wang Wei has always believed that the Tao heart, like willpower and obsessions, is one of the powers in this universe that could create miracles. Unfortunately, he lacked the knowledge and deep understanding of Tao heart to fully utilize its capabilities. However, there are still some flaws, thought Wang Wei. He took a moment to correct the flaws he saw before returning to the technique. A brilliant light appeared in the village's ancestral hall, alarming every cultivator. They rushed to the hall and saw Wang Wei's new and improved technique. Some people immediately realized he had come, so they had a celebration, thanking the ancestors, the Heavenly Emperor. Wang Wei smiled and was about to leave. A little mouse is trying to sneak in? His projection immediately disappeared from the village. Chapter 939. Mercenary Wang Wei's projection appeared somewhere in the southern sea. He saw an invisible man floating above a small island, looking around. He seemed confused at first before regaining his bearing and checking the environment. The first thing he noticed was how ordinary he looked, especially with the bland black clothes he wore, followed by this person's deeply hidden pride and arrogance. The second thing he noticed was this man was utterly invisible. Sights, divine sense, sixth or seventh senses, and even divination could not detect this man's presence. It was like he was invisible to all known matter, concepts, living and non-living things. Invisible Grand Tao source and the cultivation is at least 35%, thought Wang Wei as he watched the stranger. Furthermore, a pseudo-eternal. This man's ability was useless to someone of Wang Wei's caliber. As such, he could see him as if he was looking at a towering mountain during daylight. However, he was not complacent because he discovered he could not see some information about the latter. Someone paid him to come to assassinate me, but I could not find who it was, thought Wang Wei as his eyes read the man's fate line, knowing everything about him. This person was called the Hidden Shadow Emperor, the founder of a very popular and powerful mercenary that is very active in the commerce hub. His Hidden Hand mercenary is very famous across many world communities because the Hidden Shadow Emperor is known never to fail a mission. He has assassinated countless emperors, including 2 eternal emperors. Normally, the Hidden Shadow Emperor does not personally go on missions. He often has to remain low-key or underground to prevent garnering the attention of true heavenly Tao and continue staying in the lower dimension. As such, unless something happened to his mercenary group where he needed to step in, he never took missions. However, a while ago an employer offered him something he could not resist, so he chose to accept this assassination mission. Wang Wei calmly looked at this pseudo-eternal emperor. He saw someone paid a hefty price for his head, but he could not see the person who offered the mission. This fact did not change whether he used divination, yin-yang calculation, or looked in the past through the river of time. There are a few people or things who can resist my divination, so I only need to start from them, thought Wang Wei, eliminating a few obvious individuals like Old Man Nether and the Abyss Gap. Once everybody is eliminated, the only one remaining is the Spirit Genesis sect and their broken Empyrean artifact, analyzed Wang Wei with a sneer. He saw the Hidden Shadow Emperor wanted to land on that island to gather basic information about the world before starting his mission. So he appeared before him, shocking the proud assassin. Wang Wei saw his facial expression change from shock to bewilderment, then unwillingness, fear, regret, and in the end, returned to the calmness and ruthlessness of a peerless assassin. Interesting reaction, commented Wang Wei. Are you my target? Asked the Hidden Shadow Emperor. I should be, nodded Wang Wei. Are you no longer afraid? Why should I be? Now that you show up, it only means he'll have to do this the direct way. Yes, a peerless assassin should have the ability to kill his target in direct combat when necessary. Alas, you're not even a qualified assassin, let alone a peerless one. Who are you to judge me? said the hidden Shadow Emperor with a slightly raised voice. If you were truly capable, you would have detected the vast difference between us, acted on your based instinct and run away, said Wang Wei calmly. Alas, your pride and arrogance will be your downfall. The hidden Shadow Emperor's first instinct was anger. After all, he had his pride, something he cultivated after successfully killing 2 eternal emperors. Although he did not grant them true death, he also forced them to spend countless yuan epochs to revive themselves. However, he controlled himself and checked his opponent's power. The result scared him. He could not detect a thing. The person before him seemed not to exist, an empty and undetectable void. Then, something that had not happened for a long time occurred to the hidden Shadow Emperor. The dangerous senses he developed in his early days as an assassin before he proved the Tao activated and his body moved on its own, trying to run away. Alas, he discovered his body could not move. The hidden Shadow Emperor immediately reacted like an elite cultivator, burning his body and soul to increase his strength. His aura was intense, sensed by countless powerful individuals of the world, making them pay attention to the current situation. I need to destroy my body and soul, was the only thought in the hidden Shadow Emperor's mind. He has a chance for a comeback as long as he does this. As such, he did not even care that his opponent rendered him powerless simply by releasing his aura. He only cared about saving his life. It won't change much even if you destroy your body. I control the Tao of Karma, said Wang Wei with a devious smile, pushing the hidden Shadow Emperor over the edge. Now, fear had overwhelmed his mind, making him full of regret. Battles between emperors are not simple and must follow certain rules to ensure survival. The first and main one is never to allow your opponent to keep possession of your body. Great emperors are eternal, so they can revive themselves as long as their Tao imprints remain attached to the grand Tao source. The Tao imprint has its own protective mechanism in the form that is not easy to discover or remove in the grand Tao source. There are 2 ways to remove it. Use Tao will or will manifestation or use sealing methods and the passage of time to wash it out. However, these 2 methods hinged on the fact that Tao imprints can be discovered. Normal great emperors must use their opponents' bodies to access their Tao imprint before sealing it and using countless yuan epochs to remove it from the grand Tao source, thus effectively killing their enemy. Otherwise, searching for an adversary's Tao imprint is like searching for a single drop of water in a vast ocean. However, certain Taoists like karma, divination, yin-yang calculations, and heaven are very effective in finding the Tao imprints. So, after knowing his target had control over karma Tao, the hidden Shadow Emperor knew his fate was sealed. Even if he destroyed his body, the latter could find his Tao imprint through the karmic connection they had after trying to assassinate him. Any last word? Asked Wang Wei. No, replied the hidden Shadow Emperor. He expected this day to come. His philosophy has always been that killers must expect to one day be killed. So, after taking his first life, he predicted this might be his eventual fate. Not even begging for your life? Said Wang Wei. I'm a person fond of talent. So, I can be persuaded to spare your life. I have my pride, replied the hidden Shadow Emperor. In his life he had 2 regrets. The first one was a special target he always regretted killing, and the second was that he did not become an eternal emperor. However, he made up for the second regret after assassinating the 2 Eternals. The hidden Shadow Emperor did not regret his upcoming death. That's a shame, said Wang Wei calmly. A flame enveloped the assassin, burning his soul and body, leaving 2 floating orbs, blue and red. The blue orb was the hidden Shadow Emperor's pure soul essence, which can be used to increase soul power and other applications. The red orb was the purified power of the Grand Tao source from refining the concepts composed of his body. Such power is the main ingredient for the Grand Tao Enlightening Pill, which can help great emperors comprehend their Grand Tao source. Wang Wei put these materials away as the Grand Tao source manifested before him, still looking like a river made of chains of different sizes. A karma thread emanated from his body, connected to a specific chain with a rune or symbol on it. He used his Tao will to remove the symbol, signaling the hidden Shadow Emperor was truly dead, with no chance of reviving. Wang Wei could hear the collective sigh of the world, thinking how such a powerful and prideful man died so easily. Such a fact made many people sad as they contemplated their mortality. Meanwhile, Wang Wei looked in the distance and muttered, I haven't attacked you yet, but you dare make the first move? He sneered while a terrifying killing intent flashed in his eyes. He rarely has a pure desire to kill. To Wang Wei, killing is the least efficient way to achieve things, and he will only do it when necessary. However, the Spirit Genesis sect awakened a pure desire for carnage and destruction deep inside him. Wang Wei immediately used his divine sense to call two people, so the void around him trembled as two people arrived in less than a second. "940 Counterattack," unedited chapter. "Your Majesty," saluted Su Shi and Feng Heng, and Wang Wei nodded to them. The two watched them, each feeling somewhat lost. The intruder's strength was on par with them, but the Heavenly Emperor defeated him only using his aura. In other words, their fate would not be much different if they ever confronted the latter. The two knew the Heavenly Emperor's strength. After all, they guess his strength based on the terror they feel whenever they think of confronting him. However, they did not know exactly how powerful he was until now. No, even now they do not know the limit to his power. "I called you to make a deal," said Wang Wei directly. "I want you to attack someone along with his faction. In exchange, I will give you each the merit to increase your cultivation by 1% of the Grand Dao source." The two immediately frowned. The offer was tempting. After all, cultivating in their realm was extremely difficult, and even an increase of 1% is harder than cultivating from Immortal to the Quasi-Emperor realm. Currently, both Su Shi and Feng Heng's base cultivation was 21% Grand Dao source. Since the first court meeting, each increased their cultivation by 1%, and such progress was extremely fast by any standard. They achieved this result due to many factors such as the merit from the court, the blessing from heaven and earth as gods, their Dao discussion after the second meeting, the increase of soul power after the exchange with the Emperor, and their use of time formation. Su Shi's main Dao is time, so she can work with the Dao ancestors from the academy that cultivated Array Dao. Meanwhile, Feng Heng has the past, present, future Buddha scroll as an aid. Only with all these boosts did they achieve an increase of 1% in their cultivation in a little over 1,000 years. However, despite the benefits, they felt something was wrong, so they did not immediately agree. "Your Majesty, why aren't you attacking them yourselves or using members of your sect?" "I'm sending you to gather information," replied Wang Wei, deciding that telling the truth was the best course of action in this situation. "My intuition tells me something in that world can pose a threat to me, so I want to send you two to gather information." "Your Majesty, I know what you want to say," said Wang Wei. "I'm not sending you to your death. I will give you a talisman with my strength. You can use it to deal with the situation or run away if dangers arise. Furthermore, I will also take action to save you." The two became quiet, calculating the risks involved. "Your Majesty, this poor monk wants to know what exactly can hurt you in that world." Wang Wei looked at him. "It's a broken Empyrean artifact. Such news would be best to remain unknown." However, he did not care. If he wished to hide some information, he could wipe it from people's minds or even directly erase it from the annals of history. Of course, he revealed such information directly because it was not truly his main worry. He felt something odd with the Spirit Genesis sect, especially Shi. So, he did not rush to destroy them and chose this way to test the water first. Su Shi and Feng Heng became quiet again. At their cultivation level, they knew plenty of secrets of heaven and earth, so they knew how powerful Empyreans were. They could guess how terrible an artifact of such a level would be, even a broken one. You don't need to worry too much about the artifact. True heavenly Dao limits its power because of the balance mechanism. Wang Wei suddenly paused. "Well, you might need to worry about it. To balance my presence, true heavenly Dao has probably lowered the restrictions on its usage." "What sect do you want to attack? How powerful are they? How powerful is the target?" asked Su Shi. "The Spirit Genesis sect from the Battle Spirit world. Their sect is very powerful and they have two immortal sovereigns. However, one of them is injured, so you only need to worry about one of them. As for Shi, I don't know how powerful he is." Every time Wang Wei tried to deduce information about him, a terrifying aura blocked his power, so he guessed Shi's body was somewhat infected by the Empyrean artifact's aura. "My guess is he won't be much different than you two. If he is indeed too powerful, you can directly use my talisman to deal with him." The two pondered for a moment before Feng Heng said, "This mission seemed a little too dangerous for the poor monk." Wang Wei glanced at this shameless monk. "Final offer, merit for 2% increase in Grand Dao source, 3 Emperor Soul Pill and 1 Grand Dao Enlightening Pill each. Make it 5 Emperor Soul Pill and 3 Grand Dao Enlightening Pill and we have a deal," argued Su Shi. "Anyway, after dealing with the Dao burial ground, you won't lack the material for these pills. Fine, but you must do your best and push him to reveal his trump card. Furthermore, you must do your best to keep the battle in their territory, causing as much damage as possible. A ruthless light flashed in his eyes. He knew such a plan would cause mass casualties amongst the mortals living in the Spirit Genesis sect, but he did not care. These mortals provided luck and destiny to the Genesis sect, so their destruction could also weaken them. My hand is already stained, so there is no need to care about a few more red spots, thought Wang Wei. Feng Heng appeared conflicted after hearing these conditions but only sighed and muttered, Amit Ba. He chanted a few prayers and did not say another word. Do you want me to sign a contract? Asked Wang Wei. There is no need. We believe your words, said Su Shi. In that case, let's fine-tune the plan, nodded Wang Wei, who spent the next half hour talking to these two. Afterward, Su Shi and Feng Heng returned to their factions after taking the talismans from Wang Wei. Meanwhile, the mighty heavenly emperor looked in the distance, his eyes ignoring the very concept of space. He used his divine sense to send a message to someone countless world communities away. Finally, his projection dispersed, waiting for the plan to begin. The world immediately entered a state of quiet. No one knew what these three almighty beings discussed, but they had a hunch something big was about to happen. Sea Race, Baishi Clan. Ao Shin watched the three discuss something in the sky before dispersing. He clenched his hands, almost forcing his nail to pierce his skin. Is it because I'm not an emperor? Unwillingness flashed in his eyes before returning to his focused state. I need to hurry. His previous plan was to use subtle and diplomatic ways to get what he wanted. Now he no longer wanted to wait. The Sea Race, Ancient Clan, and Sword-Casting Villa wondered what was going on and whether there were benefits to gain. It's obvious that eternal strength is the requirement for what's coming, but they wondered why the Heavenly Emperor did not choose them. Is it because he only wanted emperors, or does he look down on them? A person like the Heavenly Emperor has too much influence. His thoughts, ideologies, and beliefs can greatly influence the world. Even a passing joke he made could greatly change the world for the better or worse. As such, many people began to overthink, letting their minds run wild. However, Wang Wei did not know what was going on, nor did he care. His focus was only on what was about to happen in the battle spirit world. After handling things back in their sect, Su Shi and Feng Heng departed to the battle spirit world community. It would have taken them a few hours to arrive at their destination due to their strength and the far distance of the community relative to the myriad emperor world. However, Wang Wei directly teleported them inside the battle spirit world while hiding their tracks. He did not want the Chi-Luck dragon of the Spirit Genesis sect to detect its faction was about to experience a catastrophe. He also did not want He-Shi's sixth sense to warn him of the upcoming attack, so Wang Wei directly acted and hid the track of these people. Luckily, things proceeded smoothly after his carefulness. Then, according to the plan, Feng Heng hid while Su Shi directly attacked. A towering hand containing the power of time descended on a beautiful palace at the very center of the entire plain. Who dares? Roared a voice before a young man appeared above the sect, He-Shi. He was dressed in black and gold, with a noble and mighty temperament. Damn it, I'm too late, he thought as he activated the sect's arrays. His actions protected most of the sect, but some of the powers will still pass in. Furthermore, he did not have time to protect the surroundings, meaning anything or anyone not in the scope of the formation would be annihilated. "941 Battle of Eternals. Damn it, I've been tricked," cursed He-Shi internally as he saw countless magical circles appearing above the sect. The attack's real purpose was not to create as much damage as possible but to place a seal that prevented other people from coming to help him. The worst thing about this situation is that he will have to take even longer than necessary to activate the four-symbol mirror. He-Shi glanced at his adversary with intense killing intent. What a beautiful woman, was the first thought that flashed in his mind. However, his killing intent did not diminish in the slightest. "Who are you?" asked He-Shi with terrible coldness emanating from his body. "I have never met you, so we should not have any animosity." He could sense the aura of an eternal from this woman. More importantly, the latter's strength made him take this battle seriously. "Your Spirit Genesis sect has offended so many people, so are you surprised that some random individual attacked you?" said Su Shi in her angelic voice. Most of the information he received from this sect originated from the Heavenly Emperor. However, she did not take things at face value and made a judgment solely based on the latter's words. In this brief encounter, she used the power of time to glance at the past of this world and saw how the Spirit Genesis sect usually acted, prideful and domineering. They made the fact they were the strongest sect in the lower dimension their only identity and personality. He-Shi frowned after hearing what she said. It's true their sect offended many people, but most factions do not dare retaliate against them. Furthermore, they usually do things in the shadows, so people often suspect it's them, but they have no proof. You're making a mistake, but there is still time to turn back. Don't wait until things get worse and your actions are irreparable. Your tone of superiority is disgusting, said Su Shi with a sneer. Then she no longer wasted any time with this person and rushed forward. The power of time enveloped her feet, and she instantly appeared next to He Shi. It was like she was always there in the first place. She clenched her beautiful hand and punched him in the face. Boom. He Shi took a dozen steps in the void before stopping. His face had no injury, not even a scratch. His body is on par with me, analyzed Su Shi. When she was in the Saint Realm, she realized the creator of the primordial chaos art was very young when creating this version, and the latter was probably not as talented as her. So she decided to improve the technique. After spending years studying divine runes, she optimized the immortal aperture realm of the technique, raising the lower limit of the technique from granting 3-leaf battle strength to 9-leaf. Alas, she did not have the time to cultivate the immortal aperture, so Su Shi did not reach 9-leaf before proving the Tao. However, afterward, not only did she finish cultivating her immortal aperture, but she also created the Tao aperture realm of this technique. Currently, her strength is 94 primordial dragon force, and once she finishes the Tao aperture, her strength should have entered the 4th realm of the true power Tao realm and achieved battle prowess equal to Tao ancestors with only her flesh. Afterward, she has to focus on creating and cultivating the chaos aperture, which should be enough for her until she opens the gate of power. As for the final realm of primordial aperture, Su Shi plans to create this stage after ascending and learning more about the world. She might come into contact with the original creator of the primordial chaos art, exchange ideas and compare which scripture is better. He Shi looked at the woman before him, surprise flashing in his eyes. The Tao of time? He immediately knew this battle would be more intense. Anyone who can prove the Tao with any of the outlaw Taos should not be underestimated, especially one who became an eternal emperor. He Shi no longer hesitated as he awakened his Tao body. Red markings appeared on his face before trailing down to his upper chest, and his pupil and hair turned golden, releasing a terrifying battle intent. A gold and silver armor appeared around his body, covering every part of his body except the head. He Shi raised his hand, and a pure black halberd materialized in his hand. Su Shi's eyes squinted after seeing her opponent's armor and weapon. She could tell it was the latter's proving Tao artifact, but she focused on it because of the hidden fearful aura she sensed. After the latter awakening, Su Shi sensed he only achieved a Grand Tao boost of 3%, but the latter's Emperor artifact gave a 10% Grand Tao boost. How is that possible? She doubted even the Heavenly Emperor's artifact could not be this powerful. Suddenly she thought of something. Did he use the power of the broken Empyrean artifact to refine and temper his proving Tao artifact? She immediately analyzed the pros and cons of this method. The pros are obvious, creating such a powerful weapon that every emperor would be envious. However, there is also a con. The Empyrean artifact should contain the Grand Tao source of its owner. If not careful, other lesser or weaker artifacts could be contaminated by the latter's Tao, rendering them useless. Su Shi did not waste time as she also awakened her Tao body. A cloud-like shawl floated above her head while the two ends embraced her body. In an instant she became more divine and noble, just like an immortal goddess descending to the world of mortals. She raised her hand and a small cauldron or pot floated above her palm, releasing the terrifying power of primordial chaos. Splitting the heaven, He Shi rushed toward his opponent, dropping his halberd with all his might. A terrifying power capable of splitting the entire world emanated from the weapon as it dropped down with unparalleled momentum. Power Tao? No, it should be Battle Tao that uses resonance to control Force Tao. Su Shi controlled her myriad Tao pot, making it grow to the size of a normal cauldron. The pot released a gray fog that stood before the mighty halberd. Following the clash, nothing happened. There was no loud sound, no energy or force releases or any effect on the surrounding space. It was like the weapon landed on a sack of cotton or clouds. The fog absorbed all the attack. Weapon 10%, awakening 3%, Tao will 2%, for an overall strength of 35, analyzed Su Shi. There is still the possibility of his soul, other source technique, or using some method to elevate the strength of his fleshly body. Only in the infant fiend god force could the body grant any Grand Tao boost, and based on their first confrontation, Su Shi knew his opponent was not there. However, she did not immediately rule out the possibility. Endless blade of time. Thousands of swords appeared above the sky, each glowing with the power of time. They descended on He faster than he could blink, think, or react. They skipped time and directly attacked a few seconds into the future, where he was unprepared and could not notice anything. Luckily, He's main Dao is Battle Dao, so the thing he lacked most was battle IQ or experience. His halberd spun in a circular motion, blocking any swords that came close to him. Then He's face changed as he stopped his actions and proceeded to evade instead. Great intuition, thought Su Shi. Her actions were only a trick, hiding her real objective. She wanted to revert the time on her opponent's artifact to the period before it became so powerful. Alas, He noticed, stopped blocking the swords of time, and evaded instead. It doesn't matter that he evades since I accomplished one of my objectives. He can evade her attack, but the same cannot be said for the area. The Spirit Genesis sect was mostly intact due to their sect's protective array, but the land beyond their protection was devastated by this one attack. Su Shi could hear the sound of something crying in agony and anger, followed by a sense of rejection between heaven and earth. She knew it was heavenly Dao's hatred for her actions. Unfortunately, the latter is powerless to do anything about it. Weakness is the original sin, thought Su Shi, a lesson she learned the hard way as she helplessly watched her husband dying in her arms. Supreme Divine Thunder Punishment. He used his halberd as a spear, rushing toward his opponent with a stabbing motion. Purple lightning and thunder surrounded him, annihilating everything in its path. Su Shi discovered this attack had the attribute of divine punishment thunder, meaning it could not be evaded. She did not panic, releasing more gray fog from the pot. It swallowed it without much effort as soon as it came into contact with this potent thunder. All things returned to chaos, muttered He, who immediately figured out what had happened. He wanted to distance himself from his opponent without hesitation, but it was too late. A sword made out of the same fog had materialized in Su Shi's hand, and she slashed him. (942) Battle of Eternals 2. Su Shi's sword should have returned He to a state of chaos, similar to the universe's beginning. However, this was not what happened. He used a technique to rebound the attack, almost injuring Su Shi with her own attack. Luckily, she had tremendous control over her Dao, taking advantage while they were in close proximity and the fact she was distracted dealing with his rebound. He head-butted her. His head amassed infinite mass and density to the point it could even destroy conceptual beings like eternal great emperors. Boom. Su Shi exploded into trillions of pieces. However, He was not happy, instead he frowned. He sensed the power of time. Time remnants? He analyzed. The person he killed is a past or future version of her or a projection from an alternative reality. Su Shi appeared a few hundred meters away with a red thread connecting to He in her hand. She then raised her hand, using it as a sharp weapon to cut off the thread. My karma thread? He's face changed. If he let her cut off the thread, many things could happen to him. For example, losing his memories, losing an important part of him, or even losing some of his strength. Threading on Infinity Step. He did not hesitate to use his most powerful battle technique, which allowed him to reach incomprehensible speed. He was so fast that he was stepping on the very concept of infinite speed itself. So, before she could react, He was beside her and gave her the meanest uppercut punch in the world. Su Shi turned into a brilliant light that flew into the heavens and crashed into the sun, her beautiful jaw obliterated. His Battle Grand Dao source is extremely versatile, she thought. Battle Dao is a battle-oriented Dao and is capable of using source resonance and controlling multiple Daos. In conclusion, it's a very terrifying Dao in the hands of the right person. Furthermore, I have been too reserved in our confrontation. In this brief clash, she discovered she was always worried about He removing the seal on the Spirit Genesis sect and gaining access to the broken Empyrean artifact. These thoughts flashed in her mind in less than a nanosecond. Then she readjusted her state. She rushed toward him, but she was not alone. Su Shi dragged the entire sun with her, crashing on He and the continent. That bitch, is she crazy? Roared He as he realized the consequences of such an act of madness. He rushed to the sky with the intention of stopping her. Unfortunately, the situation turned for the worse. Billions of suns appeared behind Su Shi, and they were all real. She created time fractures with the sun as the basis, thus replicating it into billions of parts. Opening heaven slash, He slashed his halberd, recreating the aura and power of the world when it was first created when it was in a state of pure chaos. With the power of this attack, it should be easy to obliterate these billions of suns. Using the power of chaos against me? She sneered before pausing for a moment. No, he should be smarter than this. In that case, this attack is a distraction. A subtle power of time flashed in her eyes and she saw the future. Her conjecture was correct. He Shi's real attack was his battle spirit, the war god spirit. Su Shi controlled her myriad Dao pot to absorb the subtle chaos power emanating from her opponent's slash. Immediately afterward, a creature with blue skin dressed in dark armor with 2 red horns appeared above He Shi's head. It roared like a savage and mindless machine, making the entire world tremble. It looked at Su Shi and the billion suns with its dark gold eyes before punching them. The punch seemed to be able to perfectly control all its power. Its control was so superb that it allowed the creature to generate 100 times its normal power. Anyone who saw this punch would tell this creature created and tempered this attack after experiencing millions of battles. The entire creature gave the aura that it was bred for war and battle. Unfortunately, Su Shi had long predicted this attack. She raised her hand to gather countless red threads. World Karma Seal. She gathered the karma of the entire world before using it as a potent seal, drastically reducing the strength of that punch. The fact it was not completely sealed was a testament to how powerful that simple punch was. Boom. The power released from that punch destroyed hundreds of millions of suns. Unfortunately, the rest crashed on He Shi and the world. Normally, the sun is nothing for a being of He Shi's level. Alas, Su Shi infused the power of chaos to their core, turning them into chaos suns with unimaginable power. However, she did a great job hiding their aura to lure He Shi into a sense of complacency. The world was in chaos after so many chaos suns dropped on it. The space-time continuum was unstable, the laws of heaven and earth became chaotic and trillions of lives died. The situation would have been worse had those other factions acted promptly and activated their faction's Emperor array. At the center of the explosion, He Shi floated in the void. His armor was intact, but his face melted, leaving only part of his skull. However, he instantly regenerated his handsome face. Just like he failed to inject his Dao will into Su Shi's body in that last attack, she did not succeed. As such, this kind of injury is nothing to an eternal emperor. He Shi looked at the destruction around him, and a great anger rushed into his mind. As the most powerful sect in the world, the Spirit Genesis considered the battle spirit world their property. But now, some stranger came in and caused so much damage to their possessions. Calm down, and think about the positives, thought He Shi, exhaling deeply. After fixing the mess she created, I should receive some merit from heavenly Dao. Although he convinced himself of this, he knew the loss of the sect was not as simple as seen. From this attack, they will lose the prestige gathered for countless generations, affecting their chi luck and destiny. As the strongest sect, how could they suffer such tremendous loss? How come they couldn't even protect their world? Many people will have this idea and begin to test the Spirit Genesis sect. If things develop in the worst direction, some of their enemies will become bold and directly attack them. He Shi finally calmed down, so he used his divine sense to send a secret message to some factions. Prepare to open the void battlefield. His voice was cold and full of killing intent, indicating a terrible fate would befall anyone who did not follow his order. He looked at Su Shi, his eyes red with anger and hatred. However, the reply he received was indifference and maybe even a little scorn. Su Shi did not feel bad about her actions. Being of their level have different levels of morality. Furthermore, she understood that if she did not do this to the battle spirit world, they would have done it to the myriad emperor world. She read the history of the martial hegemony world and knew they were once invited by a foreign Taoist faction, almost devastating their world. As such, she knew how cruel battles between different planes or worlds were. Su Shi even believed the assassin sent to kill the heavenly emperor also received orders to cause as much chaos as possible. As such, she will never show compassion regarding such a thing. Battle Spirit World, a few minutes ago. What is the situation? Asked Patriarchy. No one can leave or enter the sect because of the powerful seal. I know this. I'm asking, what are we doing to deal with the situation? His face was red, trying to hide the anger he was feeling. Never in his wildest dream would he have thought someone had the balls to attack their sect. All our immortals and insurgents are attacking simultaneously, but the seal is not budging, replied Elder Jia, stressed out beyond any level he has ever felt in his entire life. Even the ancestors can't do anything? Sadly no. Patriarch, he grunted. He caressed his temple, trying to think of a quick solution. Suddenly he felt a wind around and looked up. Ancestor. We need to leave the formation as soon as possible. Did something happen to my son? He hurriedly asked. Not yet. Because of the seal, my senses are blurry. However, I have a feeling the enemy's plan is not so simple. Patriarch, he sighed in relief. How do we deal with the situation? Without activating the 4-symbol mirror, the only way I can think of is to use the weapon slaves. However, is it worth it to use them now? The artifact will take too long to activate, and the weapon slaves are a last resort. Our best option is to use one of the protecting Dao talismans to open a hole in this seal so that I can leave and assist the Patriarch. "943 Battle of Eternals, 3. Protecting Dao Talisman, huh?" muttered Patriarch he, feeling a slight pain in his heart at the prospect of using these things. The Spirit Genesis sect has a few things that could be considered the ultimate foundation of the sect, and the first one is obviously the 4-symbol mirror. As long as the mirror is here, the sect can survive any trial, tribulation, or catastrophe. Another ultimate foundation of the Spirit Genesis sect is the protecting Dao talismans, derived from the 4-symbol mirror. Their ancestor found a way to condense the Empyrean power from the artifact into a talisman. The power of this talisman is more mobile than the mirror as they do not require a long time to activate. The only downside to these talismans is it's hard to control their powers, and even one thing requires an extremely long time to condense. A great emperor can use their Dao to accelerate the process, and Eternals can condense 2 talismans during their stay in the lower dimension. Fine, you can use it, said Patriarch he after hesitating for a few seconds. Then please give access, said Ancestor he. The Patriarch was momentarily confused before remembering the sect's rules. Only the Patriarch can activate the ultimate foundation of the sect. Now that his son could not be reached and it was an emergency as the former Patriarch, only he could grant permission to access the talismans. Patriarch he gave the Ancestor his token without wasting time, and the latter disappeared. A few minutes later, everyone in the sect senses a powerful immortal energy followed by an even more terrifying power. The seal above their sect trembled and cracked, making everyone ecstatic. Unfortunately, these people's smiles did not last long. The cracks healed themselves. Damn it, how could this seal be so powerful? Yelled Ancestor he as he tried to mobilize as many immortal chi allowed to power this talisman. Unfortunately, his attempt was pointless. The seal did not originate from Su Shi but was condensed by Wang Wei himself, containing his peak power of 69% Grand Dao Source. The Dao protecting talisman is powerful, but its strength was not close to the mirror, probably reaching 60% Grand Dao Source. Under normal circumstances, such strength is enough to walk sideways in the lower dimension. Unfortunately, the Spirit Genesis sect met a freak like Wang Wei. After all, he did not acquire the title of Immeasurable Emperor for nothing. Patriarch, we need to use a second talisman. Are you serious? Asked Patriarch he, feeling a pain in his heart, thinking of their sect's loss in this attack. This is not the time to hesitate. Our loss will be even greater if something happens to the sect master. Patriarch he remembered his son who was in danger and gritted his teeth. Don't hesitate, use 2 more talismans to ensure nothing goes wrong. In the distance, the immortal sovereign showed a rare look of approval. He can destroy this ceiling and reverse the situation with 2 more talismans. So he did not hesitate and used 2 more protecting Dao talismans. With this boost he easily penetrated the seal, making Ancestor he smile. Alas, his happiness was also short. An unknown power reinforced the seal. Luckily, he reacted swiftly and left the sect before the seal was completely reinforced. Ancestor he frowned after exiting the seal. He found himself in a golden world with chants echoing in the background. Buddhism? Donor, unfortunately you cannot leave, said a peaceful and gentle voice. Then a strange monk appeared before Ancestor he. The reason he said it was strange was not because the person was a monk, a religion that should have been extinct in the lower dimension, but because he sensed Taoist principles from this monk's body. You're with the attacker? This poor monk is only here to prevent you from interfering, so there is no need for us to fight, said Feng Heng. Do you think that's possible? Feng Heng sighed. His mission was indeed only to prevent the latter from interfering. According to the Heavenly Emperor, true Heavenly Dao seems very lenient when it comes to breaking the rules toward the Spirit Genesis sect. As such, if their immortal sovereign is pushed to the limit, it's possible for them to use true Tier 11 strength in the lower dimension or, at the very least, come close to it. The best plan for this battle is to drag him down while secretly injuring him. Immortal sovereigns have a higher healing ability than Dao ancestors, immortal venerables and even primarchs, but it is still not on par with great emperors and eternals. So, as long as he is injured, he must spend countless generations returning to his peak. In that case, let's begin, donor, said Feng Heng as brilliant golden light enveloped him. For this battle, he brought one of the supreme treasures of Buddhism, the Chaos Treasure, Buddha World. As such, he had the home advantage. Battle Spirit World, Eastern Region. The Battle Spirit World is a long, continuous continent with 4 seas in the north, south, west, and east. Despite having no break between continents like the Myriad Emperor world, the continent is also divided into 5, the central, east, west, north, and south regions. Because of the overbearing nature of the Spirit Genesis sect, all the top factions of the world moved out from the central region, leaving only a few weak emperor lineages that served as the eyes of these factions, keeping tabs on the Spirit Genesis sect. So, when Su Shi attacked, everyone paid attention to the central region. When she dropped billions of Chaos Suns into that area, these factions acted to create barriers to prevent the destruction from reaching other regions. Their actions were somewhat successful. Unfortunately, they did not know these suns contained Choas power and underestimated the destruction it would have caused. Regardless of the final outcome, the one who suffered the greatest loss was still the Spirit Genesis sect, and they were more than happy with the result. The Purple Chi sect is the overlord of the Eastern region, and it's also known as the second most powerful faction of the world with 10 great emperors, one of which was an eternal. Inside a room was a young, handsome man dressed in a purple robe with a golden crown, long black hair, and a jade pendant hanging on his side. The young man opened his eyes, revealing his 2 different color eyes, one blue and one red. The purple spirit eyes is a unique physique of the Purple Chi sect, and this generation's patriarch was born with it. The sect celebrated and thought they could cultivate another eternal, taking another step to catch up to the Spirit Genesis sect. Alas, things didn't go well. The Purple Spirit King lost to He Shi in the final battle and was severely injured. His situation would have been worse if he had not used all his means to escape. After hearing He Shi's command to open the void battlefield, the Purple Spirit King frowned before calling for a world council, contacting all the factions in the world. After sending the call, he activated the formation to send a projection to the meeting room. He was the first to arrive since he called the meeting, so the Purple Spirit King took his position at this round table. The next person to arrive was the cult master of the ancient Spirit Mountain, a cult that worshipped spirits with 11 great emperors. Although this lineage has the same number of emperors as the Spirit Genesis sect, before this generation, they had no eternals, and 2 of their emperors were only second class. However, they are considered one of the oldest sects, and their founder, a pseudo-eternal, pioneered the world's cultivation system. As such, they were not considered amongst the best in the world, top 5 sure but not among the top 3. The third person to arrive was the War Spirit Temple's War Priest. He was an elderly man dressed in a loose white robe with golden designs weaved into them. However, the man released a naturally oppressive aura, and his bulging muscles did not alleviate this problem. The War Spirit Temple held the position of the 3rd most powerful faction, with 9 great emperors and 1 eternal. Soon, all the top factions showed up for this meeting. You've heard He Shi know the Battle God Emperor's order. What do you think? Asked the Purple Spirit King, not hiding his contempt and hatred. Fuck him, said the War Priest, almost yelling. Veins appeared on his neck and overly toned biceps, and he released a terrifying aura. No one was surprised by this outburst. In this generation, He Shi awakened a spirit related to battle and war. As such, the Spirit Genesis sect bullied and humiliated the War Spirit Temple to better cultivate their heaven chosen. No matter how we feel about him, we cannot ignore his order, said Cult Master Haoying. The outsider is causing chaos in our world, we cannot let them. I have a better proposal, said the Saintess of the Flower Spirit Valley, a sect with 5 great emperors and 1 eternal, all women. We let the foreigners cause chaos and weaken the Spirit Genesis sect. That way we may have a chance. The room becomes quiet, everybody with their own thoughts. "944 Secret Machinations, Unedited Chapter. Your idea is fine and all, but what about the aftermath? Yes, once the Spirit Genesis sect begins to liquidate us, what can we do? Have you guys truly lost your spine?" asked the War Priest. After this war they will focus on recuperating. How could they care about us? And in the unlikely chance that she is dead, the muscle man did not continue his words, making some people revel in their imagination. Unfortunately, these people knew it was not a simple thing to kill an eternal emperor. As tempting as this idea is, we all know the Spirit Genesis sect will remain dominant as long as they have that weapon, said the Purple Spirit King, exhaling deeply. For some reason heaven and earth have begun to change in recent years. The restrictions on that weapon are beginning to loosen, said the seer, an elderly man dressed sloppily and with all white eyes with no pupil. He is the leader of the Fate Spirit sect. Their sect only had 3 great emperors, but their founder was an eternal who proved the Tao with divination Tao, and all other emperors awakened a fate-related spirit, making them extremely valuable in the world as the main source of intelligence gathering. Lord Seer, do you know the reason? Asked everybody respectfully. Although this old man was not the strongest of this group, everybody feared and respected him because of the knowledge and secrets he knew. The secrets of heaven cannot be easily detected. I only know it's because of some mechanism of heaven and earth. Does this have to do with the recent changes in the upper dimension? Maybe, replied the seer, making everybody quiet. Their situation is worse than expected if the latter says it is true. It was difficult for the Spirit Genesis sect to activate their weapon in the past, but now they learned it will be easier for them to do so. In that case, let's forget it, said the Purple Spirit King. Let's protect our region and help him activate the Void battlefield. I can help with your situation. Everyone looked at the person who spoke and their faces changed. An unknown stranger was in their meeting, and they did not even notice it. Who are you? Roared the war priest. You're a very spirited individual, aren't you? Said the intruder. As the person gazed at the war priest, the man felt the fear of God for the first in his life. His war spirit, which was the embodiment of boldness and never backing down, almost crumbled, and his Tao heart almost shattered. Luckily, the intruder removed his gaze. I am the person responsible for this attack, and I can help your situation. Your Excellency, whoever you are, it does not change the fact you are an outsider, said the Purple Spirit King, secretly swallowing his saliva to calm himself down. He did not succumb to the same gaze as the war priest, but he felt an instinctual fear when the person revealed his presence. There is no point in saying these hypocritical words now, said Wang Wei's projection. You have an enemy and the same enemy happens to be my enemy, so why can't we be friends? No one said anything for a while before the Flower Spirit Saintess asked, How can you help us? Simple, I will give you an excuse why you could not help she, replied Wang Wei. I will send people to attack your factions, and that should be more than enough to explain to the Spirit Genesis sect once the battle ends. This might work. However, no one said anything afterward. Wang Wei shook his head. Your hearts are full of fear. You have been oppressed for so long that you have developed the mentality of the weak, the mentality of losers. These people's faces changed and became ugly. They wanted to rebut him, but they did not dare. For one, they were scared of the intruder's display of power, and second, they knew he was correct. Let's fucking do it, roared the war priest. Huh? You've awakened so soon? It seems I underestimated you. He thought this guy would have to spend years to get out of the fear he instilled in him, trying to repair his Tao heart. But in such a short time he awakened and sublimated his Tao heart. The war priest snorted, Our war spirit temple does not walk the path of invincibility, so defeat is acceptable to us. However, fear is only for cowards and the weak-minded. Although he knew he could not defeat this man, even in his entire life, he would never allow himself to cower before anyone, no matter who they were. Interesting, said Wang Wei as he looked at this man. With your current state, it's only a matter of time before you reach a higher level with your temples. War God record. If you can wash away your karma, you might prove the Tao and even have a chance at achieving eternity. How do you know so much? Asked the war priest, baffled. Because he's the embodiment of fate itself, uttered the seer while trembling. Everyone looked at him, not hiding their puzzlement. So, do you agree with my offer? Asked Wang Wei. Why not? Said the Purple Spirit King, who suddenly felt envious of the war priest. A secret part of him felt it was a great honor to receive praise from the intruder. Of course he would never admit this truth. Wise choice, said Wang Wei, not giving the others time to make a choice. He raised his hand, and a subtle change occurred in this illusory space. Everybody felt something had happened, but they did not know exactly what. Sir? Asked the saintess. Don't worry. I'm only taking precautions to prevent anyone from revealing the truth to the Spirit Genesis sect under threat or temptation. This was indeed a problem, but these people wondered why this outsider was so concerned about their world. Shouldn't he be glad they can turn against each other, plundering the world into chaos? Wang Wei did not explain anything to them and prepared to leave. "My lord, wait," said the seer. His projection stood up from his seat and kowtow on the ground. "Please take me as your disciple." "Sir Seer," said multiple people as they stood up from their seats. It was one thing to work with an outsider but something entirely different to become their disciple. "You do not understand," said the seer with a deep sigh. "Our founder's greatest regret is he could only peek at a corner of the wonder that is fate. Meanwhile, all our descendants have fallen into the outlaw trial or are scared even to participate. We thought it was impossible for anyone to succeed, but a living example exists before me. If I don't take this chance, I know I will regret it for the rest of my life." People looked at the seer with a different look. Some understood while others were still confused. After all, not everyone knew. Wang Wei calmly looked at the elderly man before him and said, "I have no desire to take in an apprentice now, and your destiny and luck are not enough to bear the karma of being my apprentice. However, I admire your desire to pursue the Tao, so I'll give you a gift." He raised his hand to condense some of his understanding of fate into a talisman. The talisman disappeared in the distance, appearing before the seer in the Fate Spirit sect. "Thank you, Lord, for the gift," said the seer, still remaining in his kowtow form. Although disappointed he could not become the latter's apprentice, such a gift is enough to become the foundation of their sect, allowing them to better peer at the secrets of fate while reducing the price they must make. Wang Wei nodded. He had his reasons for caring so much about the battle spirit world and granting this man such a gift. The heavenly court must expand to the lower dimension, having a relationship or contact with all heavenly world. As such, he did not want to leave a bad impression on these people with Su Shi's actions. Otherwise, it would become troublesome in their future interactions, so he needed to alleviate their relationship to the best of his ability. He does not hope these people will help him with his work. He will be satisfied if they do not interfere. If he plays his card correctly, the elderly man might become his aide when he intervenes in the affairs of this world. At the very least, he will be an ambassador that connects the two worlds. Once his work finished, Wang Wei's projection disappeared. Myriad Emperor World, Heavenly Court. Wang Wei continued to observe everything that was happening in the battle spirit world. "It was truly a mistake for our world to alienate ourselves from the outside," he commented. He did not show up only to instigate these factions but also because he wanted to analyze and copy their void battlefield, since he had the same idea for his battle with Old Man Nether. Eternal Emperor's destructive ability is too powerful, so most heaven will create a void battlefield, a special dimension where these godlike entities can use their full power without affecting the world in the slightest. Heavenly Daos limit is second class, so any first class and above emperors can destroy the world if they go on a rampage. Wang Wei looked in the distance. He saw many worlds with a void battlefield. It's a product of a well-developed civilization. The Immortal Avenue Pact reduced the presence and battle of immortal powerhouses. However, if the world had a void battlefield, so many lives and world source could have been saved. When the heaven-devouring emperor went on a rampage, Wang Wei could imagine how many people died in that catastrophe. If the world had communicated with the outside and built a void battlefield, they could have forced him into it and saved much effort. "Forget it, there is no point in thinking about this," concluded Wang Wei. Building a void battlefield was not a simple thing and needed very rare and valuable materials. Furthermore, his task is even more difficult since he wants to build one capable of bearing the strength of Empyreans. "Maybe I can get merit for this thing," suddenly thought Wang Wei. "If I can change the order of the entire lower dimension, making that once cultivator with the strength of first class and above release certain fluctuations, they will instantly be teleported to the void battlefield." His eyes lit up since the idea was feasible. Upon success, he will save countless lives and save multiple worlds, countless world source. If I want to succeed, I will need a special void battlefield and also enter the taboo realm of Battle Realm. The best way to accomplish this plan would be to go to each world community and change things. However, Wang Wei felt it would be better for his strength to enter the taboo field and do it in one step. Such a method would ensure higher success, and he won't have to deal with all these people he knows will try to stop him for one reason or another. 9:45 The battle reaches its pinnacle. He Shi's fierce eyes glanced at Su Shi while observing his surroundings. The world was in utter darkness without a sun. The yang and yin were out of balance, with yin energy overabundant. So many people died, and with the overwhelming amount of yin energy, countless ghosts or evil spirits were being born with each passing second. He-Shi's mind flashed to how peaceful and beautiful the world used to be and compared it to now, and his anger maxed out. Fighting heaven and earth, a terrifying fighting intent manifested around He-Shi drastically increased his aura. A source technique? Thought Su Shi with a serious gaze, analyzing the situation. She saw the latter condensed an immense amount of fighting intent that exists between heaven and earth to boost his strength. He-Shi waved his halberd like it was a toy with no weight. Then he disappeared and reappeared before Su Shi and smashed down. The space around her compressed, not giving her an opportunity to react or escape. With that swing of the halberd, it was like the entire world was against her. Boom! Su Shi's body could not withstand the power behind that attack, so she exploded into a brilliant mist of light. He-Shi frowned as he knew things were not so simple. As expected, less than a second afterward, her body recondensed on its own. Life and death Tao? It was already difficult to kill eternal emperors, but now he was facing someone who controlled these two Taos that were excelling at healing or overcoming death. His strength increased only by 1% Grand Tao source, yet I find it difficult to keep up, thought Su Shi with a sigh. Since one attack cannot kill you, I will use 1,000 more, said He-Shi with a sneer. Dividing heaven and earth, He-Shi proved the Tao using battle and martial arts, so his arsenal of techniques are diverse. One of his signature techniques used dividing Tao, allowing him to separate things into two or multiple parts. So, with this one slash, he had the power to divide the entire world into two. He focused all the strength of this technique on the attack, targeting only Su Shi and minimizing the damage to the battle spirit world. Chaos Armor, Su Shi's myriad Tao pot, released a great amount of gray clouds, condensing them into a shield around her. Crack. Her defense almost crumbled as cracks materialized all over the cloud. Her face became pale as blood trickled down the corner of her mouth. One drop of blood fell on the ground and, before hitting the earth, turned into a vast ocean that flooded countless dynasties, both mortal and spiritual. Dividing primordial chaos, He-Shi attacked a second time, targeting his opponent's unique power. As his halberd fell down, it now contained the power to divide primordial chaos, the fundamental force that exists at the beginning of the chaos universe. Su Shi knew the power of this attack and the fact she could not block it. So, she abandoned most of her defense and focused on the opponent's Tao will. All she needed to do was to prevent He-Shi's Tao will from entering her body and soul, then she could revive herself. Boom. The fog was useless before the halberd. The myriad Tao pot flew into the distance with some scratches on its body. As for Su Shi's beautiful body, it exploded into 1,000,000,000,000 scattered particles. Damn it, thought He-Shi, who knew he failed to kill his opponent. He secretly exhaled to calm down. Why haven't these guys opened the void battlefield yet? He took a brief moment to check the situation and noticed 4 potent aura in each of the other regions. Are they also attacked? A part of him felt relieved after knowing he was not the only one suffering. However, he also understood this was a targeted attack, and his enemy did not want other people to come to his aid. Su Shi reappeared from the drop of blood that fell on the ground. She looked at her opponent with great concentration. You should understand you are not my opponent. Why don't you save us both the effort and stop this pointless battle, said He-Shi calmly. Despite his overwhelming anger, he knew this was the best choice for the current situation. Killing a foreign eternal emperor was extremely difficult since he would need to erase her history, but that involved finding her identity first. Tell me who you are and who sent you, then our grudge will end. Do you think you're the only one with a source technique? Asked Su Shi with a sneer, making He-Shi frown. His first thought was that his opponent was bluffing. Source techniques are rare, but not the point he believed only he would have them. According to his analysis, his attacker is a young eternal, proving the Tao in this generation, meaning she should not have much time to create her own source technique. As for an existing technique from whatever factions she originated from, well, He-Shi believed that if she had such techniques, she would have used them as a primary Grand Tao boost at the beginning of the battle, unless her source technique was one of her trump cards. No, my assumptions are wrong. She cultivates time Tao, so she should have plenty of time to create a source technique. He immediately wanted to stop her, but it was too late. A mysterious aura emanated from Su Shi's body. Her closed eyes and facial expression displayed intense sadness and longing. What is this? Emotions? No, it should be an obsession. During their Tao discussion, the Heavenly Emperor said something that greatly resonated with Su Shi. According to him, there are a few things that can allow any individual to rebel against their fate and create miracles. The first one is unparalleled intelligence and wisdom, the second is unmatched willpower, the third is an unwavering Tao heart, and lastly, unrelenting obsessions. After hearing these words, Su Shi felt inspired, so she created a unique source technique called Seed of Obsession. She used her desire and obsession to revive her husband into a seed before nourishing it with the power of time. With the power of time, she can experience countless alternative timelines where she does everything possible to revive her husband but ultimately fails. However, no matter the trial and tribulation, she never stopped trying, thus nourishing her obsession. Cultivating this technique is extremely difficult and requires people who have deep desire or obsession. Furthermore, there is a flaw in this technique in which it's easy for people to be devilized as the obsession takes over their soul and spirit, turning them into mindless puppets only dedicated to completing their obsession. As the creator of this technique, even she is not immune to this possible side effect. As of now, this source technique only grants her an increase of 1.5% Grand Tao source, but there is still room for improvement. As long as she continues nourishing her obsession, the boost can reach a minimum of 5% and even reach a higher level. Additionally, this technique is also a great way to temper the state of mind and Tao heart. Su Shi opened her eyes and they had turned completely pink. Her pot spewed more gray fog, which then condensed into a beautiful white sword. She instantly materialized before he, slashing down her weapon. True Death Sword. Su Shi's sword contained the power of true death, meaning she would kill her opponent's Tao body, soul, and even Tao. If she kills he with this sword, reviving himself, even as an eternal emperor, will become 100 times more difficult and require as many resources. The battle god emperor knew the consequences of not blocking that sword. So, he reacted faster than he ever had in his entire life. Unfortunately, a river had manifested above him, freezing time for the entire world. So, he watched his death rapidly approaching. As a great emperor, he is semi-detached from space-time itself, hence his immortality or infinite lifespan, so his mind could still barely operate. I have no choice now, he thought as he used one of his trump cards. 5 spots of light appeared on his body, focusing on the upper and lower torso area. A terrifying aura emanated from he as his fleshly body suddenly increased drastically, breaking into the infant fiend god realm. Bang! He flew away, crashing into the earth, generating a terrifying force that could annihilate the entire central region. Luckily, he reacted swiftly and used his soul to quell the destructive force his landing created. He coughed a mouthful of blood, but he did not care about that. Do you think such a simple trick can affect my mind? Said Ancestor He with a sneer. Donor, you can think whatever is soothing to your sanity, replied Feng Heng with a humble and polite smile. He looked in the distance. It's almost time. Spirit Genesis Sect. Patriarch. He waited patiently while tapping his right foot. What is taking so long? Sorry, Patriarch, the seal has also affected the mirror, so it's taking longer to activate, replied one of the sect's elders. We cannot wait any longer. Then what do you want us to do? Use a sacrifice. Is this really necessary? We only need to wait a while? Asked Patriarch Jia. This is not the time for hesitation. Each passing second means a new variable. According to their plan, the ancestor should have dealt with the situation by now, or at least give him an update. But a few minutes had passed and there was no news. This could only mean something unexpected had occurred. Very well. The elders sent the orders and someone executed them. In a secret dimension of the sect stood a bronze mirror. In the back was an engraving of the divine beasts of vermilion bird, black tortoise, white tiger and azure dragon, each positioned in the correct cardinal directions of south, north, west and east. There were cracks on the side of the mirror, and it was surrounded by countless runes. A person walked into the room carrying 3 others in chains and tattered clothes. The man carrying the prisoners did not waste time as he immediately recited a spell. Following this, the 3 prisoners had their blood drained by the mirror. They tried to resist, but it was futile. The mirror seemed greedy and absorbed their flesh, blood, soul and inner worlds before releasing a terrifying aura. Finally, it released a brilliant light that directly attacked the seal. Buddha world. Feng Heng suddenly paused as a voice entered his mind. Then, without hesitation, he attacked Ancestor He with all his strength. He borrowed the strength of the Buddha world, giving him a blessing of 2% Grand Dao Source. Central Region. Su Shi received the same message. Afterward, she did something surprising. She allowed He Shi's attack to hit her. Her body exploded into countless particles and she never appeared again. Run away. Damn it, roared He Shi, who swore this was far from over. Then, his face turned ugly as he saw a colossal hand descending from the sky. He felt powerless before that hand. Immediately He Shi knew the people behind this attack. There has only been one thing he felt this powerless. It was when he invaded the Myriad Emperor world's cleanup. That young man did a random punch and almost killed him. His body trembled, but he stimulated his pain receptors, using pain to combat the fear. No, I cannot die yet. Luck was in He Shi's favor, or Wang Wei's attack was never him in the first place. The hand directly confronted the beam of light released by the mirror, and they were in a stalemate for a while. Wang Wei glanced at the head, who looked shocked, confused and horrified, and asked, "Your mission succeeded?" "Yes. The assassination was successful." "Did you encounter any problem?" "None at all." Wang Wei nodded. After killing the injured immortal sovereign of the Spirit Genesis sect, their sect's foundation was further weakened. So, with He Shi's actions, the entire central region underwent a baptism, nourishing all the newly revived creatures, nourishing the soil, the trees, the mountains, and even the veins underneath the earth. I will use my left as the source of the most Yin to remove the resentment from this calamity. Without hesitation, He Shi dug out his left eye and sacrificed it. Too many people died in the battle, making the resentment almost substantial. If not dealt with properly, it could fuse with the spiritual qi between heaven and earth, making it easier for cultivators to be devilized and lose their minds, turning into mindless agents of slaughter. He Shi raised his right hand to his back, pulling out something, his spine. Finally, I will use my spine to support heaven and earth. From now on, even quasi-emperors cannot break the void during battle. The whole world trembled for a moment as the space was reinforced to an unimaginable level. From now on, an eternal emperor's spine will be the source of power in the battle spirit world space, changing the world for the better. As soon as he finished, the sky changed as countless visions manifested. Then, a voice echoed throughout the entire world, "Thank you to the great emperor for saving all sentient beings and achieving great merit." All the mortals of the battle spirit world seemed to have this single thought embedded into their minds by heaven and earth, so they knelt on the ground and kowtowed while chanting these words repeatedly. The power of incense? Thought He Shi, who did not expect to have such a benefit. With such quantity, his cultivation should take a small step forward. I guess my actions were worth it, he thought as he looked at the sky. After the visions ended, a glowing purple orb descended from heaven to his hand. Heavenly Tao rewarded him with purple merit for his contribution. He was excited but controlled his emotions. He still needed to check whether he accomplished his main objective. So he checked the Sex Chi Luck Dragon without hesitation. He saw the previously proud dragon had lost countless scales, and its body was bleeding. However, its aura was no longer as majestic and mighty as it used to be. Luckily, a new power manifested out of nowhere and healed a few of the wounds. Furthermore, the continuous declining aura had drastically reduced its speed. This is enough for now to stabilize the situation. Now it's time for the next step. He Shi disappeared, returning to the sect. Myriad Emperor World. Wang Wei, who was drinking alone, sighed. This He Shi is truly not simple. In such a short time he came up with such a method to stabilize the sect's luck. No talent who can prove the Tao is simple. Even if they were, the process slowly rises to the top, and trampling on others will change anyone. Furthermore, anyone who has witnessed the very source or origin of the Tao will never see the world in a simple manner. In other words, any great emperor is destined to be extraordinary from other cultivators. So far you've caught my attention. Then, let's see if you'll become a worthy adversary, muttered before continuing to drink. Without Li Jun to accompany him to drink, he felt lonely. Luckily, he only had to wait a few days for ancestor Wuxia to have a drinking buddy. And yet, he showed signs of developing a heart demon, which is a shocking thing. Do you think using a foreign thing like a weapon can make you on par with him? Ancestor, he did not hide his sneer and contempt. Alas, the response he received was still this overwhelming calmness. I walk the way of battle. Anything that can be used to win and defeat the enemy is also a part of my strength, replied the battle god emperor with the utmost confidence. Furthermore, as long as I can kill him or delay his revival, I'm confident I can surpass his current strength. Ancestor, he quieted down for a moment, accepting his fate. He then looked at his student in his eyes. You did the right thing. In this situation, this is the best solution for the sect. He knew if he were in the latter's shoes, he would have made the same choice. I'm proud of you, said Ancestor. He knew only with such a ruthless leader would the sect have an opportunity to survive the calamity that is called Wang Wei. Although he has his selfishness, his core philosophy and ideologies are to ensure the sect continues on its legacy and thrives. A ray of softness flashed in He Shi's eyes before disappearing. Do you have any last words or wishes? Make sure the sect survives, said Ancestor He with the utmost solemnity. I will, replied He Shi firmly. He waved his hand, and the runes in the room turned into a seed, leaving only him in the empty and desolate room. He Shi stood in absolute silence for the next 3 hours before standing up. He disappeared, heading to Alchemy Supreme Elder. Not long after proving the Tao, he tasked the Supreme Elder to use the best material from the garden to concoct the God-nourishing pill for him, which has the same effect as the Emperor's soul pill. In other words, these materials are the last ones in existence from the garden. He Shi plans to use one of the pills to nourish Ancestor He's soul to ensure he is strong enough for the fusion with the mirror. Myriad Emperor World, Tao Opening Sect. A few days passed and Ancestor Wuxia exited his retreat. Wang Wei waited for him with a small table full of delicious snacks and great wine. Ancestor, how was your retreat? Asked Wang Wei as he poured wine for the latter. Wuxia took a sip and his eyes shone. He could feel the strength of his soul increase slightly. Great wine, he commented. He could tell this thing was nourished by the Grand Tao Source and fermented for millions of years. It was great, he replied. I finally officially reached the realm of first class. Furthermore, I can feel this is not my limit as I am full of potential. Wang Wei nodded as he was not surprised by this outcome. His bloodline has just been activated, so people still need time to grow and develop. However, the main objective of the bloodline is to increase potential. Wuxia chugged the wine like he was drinking water, making Wang Wei speechless. Kid, I have always said you were the gift that kept giving. Too much energy will be released from the source chi space, causing damage to the world and the people in it. Many emperors have tried to find the perfect balance where only a small portion of the energy is released. Some have succeeded, thus creating special secret realms for their factions full of spiritual chi and even some innate chi and immortal chi secret realm. However, no one could succeed on such a large scale as the Heavenly Emperor. Wang Wei did not know what these people were thinking. However, it did not matter since he was too focused on his work. People thought his actions finished after accessing spiritual chi from the source chi space, but it was just the beginning. The five flowers' purpose is not only to take energy but also to compress it into innate chi. So, under the entire world's watch, the spiritual chi between heaven and earth in all 5 continents drastically increased at a speed noticeable by even the lowest cultivator. After more than an hour, the world's energy reached a critical point. Acquire chi, muttered Wang Wei as he observed everything. Acquire chi is still spiritual chi, but it's also the pinnacle of its concentration. It is the line between spiritual chi and innate chi. In ancient times, the purity and concentration of energy decreased with each passing day until the first ray of acquired chi appeared. That's also when humans first appeared in the world. In some ways, the first generations of humans in this world were innate creatures since they were born from heaven and earth. However, these humans were not nourished by innate chi or the laws of heaven and earth, so they were born weak according to the standard of the innate demon gods. However, Wang Wei and many modern scholars could imagine how terrifying the talents of these innate humans were. If they had the chance to practice cultivation techniques, their achievements would have been unparalleled. In this environment, mortals can live between 200 to 300 years even without practicing martial arts or becoming extraordinary citizens, thought Wang Wei. And once the environment contains innate qi, it's not impossible for them to live for thousands of years after practicing martial arts and spiritual power. As soon as he had these thoughts, he frowned. His eyes changed and he saw something. I see. This era is different from ancient times before the path of emperor opened. In this era, the road of longevity is strictly controlled, so the lifespan limit of mortals is 500 years. Many truths flashed in Wang Wei's eyes as he saw the essence of the world. This also means that the innate demon gods below tier 10 cannot have unlimited lifespans even in this environment. Even humans who awakened innate laws will only have longer lifespans than expected, but they cannot be immortal unless they become primarchs. Wang Wei became jealous of these ancient creatures for a moment. They could so easily achieve immortality, albeit a conditional one. As the world evolved and became more prosperous, Heavenly Tao will reward them again. Without hesitation, he cut off the majority of the merit and sent them to the Emperor Enlightening Academy and the Western Bliss sect, paying part of his debt. The environment has returned to innate. All the court's gods must ensure nothing happens to their area during the transition. Wang Wei's voice echoed throughout the world, and these gods and emperor lineages guessed what they meant. The entire world was about to experience drastic change due to the introduction of innate qi. Mountains, forests, lakes, rivers, and spiritual veins will appear out of nowhere in a matter of days. Already existing mountains will grow taller, and more earthquakes, volcano eruptions, hurricanes, and tsunamis will occur as new spiritual materials begin to grow rapidly in dangerous areas that can affect the weather. New secret dimensions will be born and appear, releasing spatial fluctuations that are extremely dangerous. Animals, who are more sensitive to energy than humans, will become demon beasts. If not properly controlled, they could cause chaos and mayhem. Furthermore, many animals will awaken hidden bloodlines in their bodies, which is good news for the demon race and the sea race. However, humans will also benefit. Many people will also awaken dormant bloodlines. More talented humans will be born under the nourishment of innate qi, and some people who were previously mortals without a leakless body will acquire cultivation qualifications. Lastly, as the protagonist of this world, the majority of the lucky fortunate encounters that just appeared in this world will belong to humans. After Wang Wei's orders, all the gods began to work together to ensure their mortal civilizations could survive this change without any issues. His clones have the same physique, soul, memories, and spirit and absorb the same amount of innate qi. The result was their blood qi was the same, meaning the starting point of these two systems was the same. After seeing this result, Wang Wei focused on the second stage, Iron Bone Copper Skin Realm. The ancient system did not open their Dantian or Divine Sea. They continued on the path of training the body, training the skin, muscles, tendons, bones, and organs. Wang Wei had his clones reach the second stage and battle it out. The result was that the ancient system clone was the final winner. The latter could completely ignore the damage from the origin clone's origin qi. So, it was a brutal defeat. That's concerning, muttered Wang Wei, who quickly discovered the crux of the issue. The origin qi condensed by the clone was purer as it used innate qi, but it did not sublimate to a higher level. Wang Wei continued his observation for the third stage, Rune Body Realm. In this realm, the ancient clone condensed runes with his powerful blood qi and spiritual power, and these runes resonated with heaven and earth. After fusing these runes into the body, it reached another level. The heaven-opening emperor probably created this realm after seeing that female primordial gods cultivating. He saw the Tao rhymes releasing from her body, but he could not understand them. So, he copied them and created a lesser version in the form of Tao runes. By then, he should have been only in tier 2, so his understanding must be quite high to pull off such a feat worthy of my ancestor, muttered. After praising the heaven-opening emperor, he had the two clones fight, trying to see the result between the divine altar realm and rune body realm. The final result was still a win for the ancient system. However, it was not because of strength difference but because the ancient clone had unparalleled endurance, so he forced the origin clone to use more origin chi than it could replenish from the environment. The divine veins is a brilliant method that actually improves a cultivator's control of spiritual chi between heaven and earth. However, the Tao runes also have a similar effect. One walked the path of chi and the other walked the path of essence, body. The fourth stage was the bloodline seed realm, where ancient cultivators implemented their first bloodline. In this stage, the bodies and spirits of ancient cultivators are strong enough to survive the infusion of innate demons or primordial gods' bloodlines. Their strength will reach another level after the baptism of their chosen bloodline. They will also awaken divine abilities. However, the bloodline used can only be considered a seed of potential because cultivators cannot bear high bloodlines. So, they must continue to develop the strength of their bloodlines. Wang Wei stimulated a battle between the clones in this realm.